Just 1 second while we work out our technical issues.
It's not 7 yet. Dead on the money. It's 1900.
You got an iPhone, so you gotta learn how to tell time now. You've been on Android time for all these years. iPhone's real time.
1900 on deck, son. Hoorah.
Good? All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to go ahead and call this regularly scheduled City Commission meeting of July 24th to order. I have 2 minor changes on the agenda as it was published. I'm going to switch out in presentations item 1 and 2. We're going to go ahead and recognize all the folks who have received awards while they've got family here so they can get back to their evening. So item 1 will be Public Works and Utility Director, Assistant City Manager. Item 2 will be City of Newberry Comprehensive Plan Overhaul. And then on item 13, we're going to move that to first reading of impact fees, not second reading of impact fees. So with those 2 changes, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
I have a motion from Commissioner Martin, a second from Commissioner Coleman. Any comments, questions on the motion on the floor from the dais? Public comments, questions on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. I do not have on my agenda who's giving the invocation tonight. Do we have a preacher in the house? You want to come on down and give an invocation for us? Thank you, ma'am. If you would please rise for the invocation, just stand right. And do we have a green light on that microphone?
It's a green light.
And then please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you, ma'am.
Amen. Amen. Heavenly Father, I come to you now in the name of my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. We thank you for our city, our citizens, the leaders, the staff, and each governing department of Newberry. May the spirit of integrity, thoughtfulness, clarity of mind and vision, and kindness be in control in this meeting tonight. That the best decisions be made, Lord, concerning all the people of Newberry and others. Direction for the good of this place and its development and surrounding areas. We pray in Jesus' name, amen. Flag, United States of America, to the republic, which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good job, young lady. That's wonderful. Yeah. Thank you, Miss Cheeseburger. Okay. That's going to take us to presentations. And Newberry is blessed right now with one of the best teams in the state of Florida. And tonight we get to celebrate a couple of awards. I'm going to let our city manager, Mr. New, for you to introduce both of the recipients and tell us a little bit about the awards that they have brought home to our community.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. So on the first announcement is that our Assistant City Manager, Jamie Jones, was recognized by the American Public Power Association for this year's recipient of their prestigious Larry Hobart 7 Hats Award. The award recognizes individuals in smaller organizations. I believe it's populations less than 3,000 connections? 2,500 meters, whose contributions to the organization require expertise in multiple areas. So you all are here every day. You see the multiple hats that Jamie wins, and I actually, when APP announced that Jamie had won the recipients, I responded with, I think he's should get 2 of them this year because he wears about 14 hats for the city of Newberry, and they weren't having it. It's 7 or more. But Jamie is as deserving of a recipient of this award as there's ever been in America. He is truly that guy that is a resource to everyone, and truly knows a little bit about everything that we're ever going to do in local government. He has just had great experience in his background, and he retains it all, and he is someone that we all count on for advice every day, and he's very generous with helping us with that. So we'd like to recognize them. I think
We have it right here.
The
Jamie,
mayor has
step
it.
on down, we're gonna embarrass you. We'll get one with. Bring some family down for the picture.
absolutely.
Come on down here, let's give a family shot. I knew you were gonna come right on down. Yeah. Good job. Come on in. All right, now turn around, face the camera. There you go. Thanks, sir. Now, if you got a 10, 15-minute speech?
No, I thank you for the recognition, and that is sufficient.
Well, Jamie, I agree with Mike. We all know you wear about 14 hats and you do it well. And we appreciate everything that you do for the commission, everything you do for the community. It really is an honor and our privilege to have you on the team.
And Mr. Mayor, you know, I think that the commission probably should steel themselves for seeing Jamie at that podium. He's just accomplishing quite a few things for our community, and you might see him at a next city commission meeting or two, standing right back up there, being recognized for other achievements in his everyday work life with us.
Awesome. Well, thank you, sir. We appreciate it. And as a special treat, no one has to stay for the rest of the meeting. All right. City Newberry Comprehensive Plan overhaul. Mike, is that you?
You gonna introduce him? Oh, the comp plan overhaul. That's
Right.
Brian. Mr. Mayor,
All right.
the Director of Planning and Economic Development, Brian Thomas, is going to lead us in this presentation.
Take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, I'm just going to introduce our consultants who are going to
Okay.
lead us in this discussion. Jerry Diedenbach from CHW is here, just Jerry Diedenbach from CHW is here. There's a team of consultants we've been working with. It's not just Jerry. And so he wanted to go in and give a update to the commission on the work that's been done so far and discuss the timeline moving forward.
All right. Great. We're going to install the lift for you soon. We've said you come and present it up to Newberry that we're just going to figure out how to ratchet that podium up.
Thank you. The mic does a pretty good job though, so glad to be here. And as they say, what do they say? It takes a team to make a village, or it
There
takes a
you
village
go,
to make
yeah.
a team. Yeah, I'm not here alone. Over here against the wall, hiding in the back corner where I was, trying to avoid Mike and Brian's gaze, are Silas and Romy, two of our interns this summer that have been working with us.
Wonderful.
Mr. Thompson, Ryan, would be here, but he's a brand new father.
Awesome.
Well, tell them we
So,
said congratulations.
We will absolutely do that. So I'm going to talk to you. It'll only take about 3 hours or so to get you through this, and we'll keep it nice and prompt. But we have been working with your staff in kind of a collaborative effort to mesh together the update to your comprehensive plan. So I have a little bit of a slideshow here, and just want to tell you all and the citizens where we are, what we're going to be doing next, and what input we would like to see. So the idea of a comprehensive plan update is obviously to make sure that the city's vision is reflected in the documents that govern how things are developed, how things are managed, and how the future is formed over the next quarter century. We are assisting the city staff in a collaborative effort. We are putting together 3 of those 11 elements: the future land use element, the traffic circulation element, and the housing element. And we're doing that again in a collaborative, meshed sort of manner with Brian, Jean-Paul, Uma, Jamie, and others in city staff to make sure that all the elements work well together. We initiated this project in April, and over the past couple months, what we've done is held 2 open houses. First one was a roaring success. Brian said it was the largest meeting in the city of Newberry related to planning that never had food at it. Because if we had to dangle out there cookies and lemonade and things like that, we probably would have got more than 50 people. And I was really pleased when I left here. I will be honest with you all, as I have always been from this podium, I was not pleased on meeting 2. We had about 10 people. We dropped down, what's that, about 80%. So I'm hoping that through the combination of social media and the mayor, who frequently posts, and city staff, that we can up that in the coming meetings. This month, we are kind of going to draw to close with some comments that we take from you tonight, the first step of community input. And then we're going to begin to prepare draft language and materials for your consideration, which will occur during workshops. In November and December, we will be taking those materials through the Planning and Zoning Board. We'll take them to the City Commission, where you will transmit these to the state of Florida, which is now, used to be, remember, the Department of Community Affairs, then the Department of Economic Opportunity. It is now the Department of Commerce, okay? And they will review the text amendments that you are proposing in your plan, perhaps some map amendments too, and they will send that back. And so we hope that around the end of the year or the first of next year, you will actually have a final adoption hearing. So we have many months ahead of us. August, September, October, November, December, January, so about 5 months to go. So let's talk a little bit about the individual elements that we're working on. You all know that a future land use element, or the FLU, is the portion of your comprehensive plan which talks about where things are, the distribution of residential to commercial, commercial to recreation, agriculture to business, industrial to conservation. And that element also within it has 3 sub-elements: the Newberry Visions sub-element, the urban services area, and then the rural and urban sub-elements. The traffic circulation element, we might think that you all want to change this based on some of the comments we've received, because it's bigger than just traffic. We heard repeatedly, when new development happens or when we are thinking about our downtown, we need ways to get around other than just in a car. If we want to walk a sidewalk to a restaurant downtown, or if we want to ride our bicycle to a park to play tennis or pickleball or whatever, that there needs to be a balance of transportation choices. And we think that that is an appropriate response from the public in a community such as Newberry. The housing element, this is really about providing decent, safe, sanitary housing at all cost levels and in sufficient quantities for the population. So this is really an element that ties together that future land use element, but it also tells the community, if you're thinking of building workforce housing or entry-level housing or empty nester housing, where does that go, so that as people age in the community, they don't need to rely on a car? Maybe they can walk to a drugstore, walk to a restaurant, or to other recreation features or city hall to transact business, pay their utility bill, and so forth. So stepping back to meeting number 1, which was held in the community center next door here, we had 152 comments that came forward. And so in my planner brain of sorting things out like a matrix, I said, okay, let's take these elements that we've listened to the public about and staff have sent to us, and see how these elements plug into the future land use, the transportation, and the housing element. What we found is we constructed a table that has about 34 lines on it, okay? Those are the lines that go across here. Now, most of these were common to land use, traffic, and recreation. But some of the things that people said, like, we need to have like a historic train or a historic nod to our railroad history in a downtown park, okay? So that would not only play into the parks and recreation type element, but it would play into the future land use element about where parks should be located. So using that commonality of what is relative to each element and multiple elements, that's how we're collaboratively meshing together with staff to make sure that what they're writing in the elements that they're producing meshes with what we're writing in our elements. So we've grouped all these elements together, and I'll give you a highlight of what we're seeing. When we talked about future land use, we used kind of a scatter graph technology to say, what rings out the loudest? Well, no surprise, preserve rural character. There is a great deal of community sentiment for preserving the rural area of the community. That isn't to say that people don't want to have neighborhood meetings and preserving trees and open space and raising development standards on new development to occur when development happens. Also, we heard, kind of surprisingly for the first time, an idea of transitional density. We want the core of the city to have the highest density in it, maybe some townhomes, maybe some apartments ultimately in the downtown area. But then as you get toward the peripheral area of the city, it goes to that 1 unit per 5 acre, very low density rural character. And there were a few comments, quite frankly, that we wanted to make sure that the pace of development wasn't overrunning the city. And there was also a few comments about reducing the urban services area in the city. Some of the other side of the coin that we heard that was very pro-development was we would welcome new businesses and new jobs and employment here. We want to leverage the one-way pairs to create a stronger network of downtown where businesses want to be and that people can park and shop, dine, walk around, enjoy the city, and then, potentially, hopefully live here or go home. Then we also heard repurposing existing buildings. So when it came to the population, one of the things that wasn't surprising to us because of the famous map that floats around, and I don't see one on the table right now, but it shows all these developments in the city of Newberry, and people are thinking that the baby is out with the bathwater, and it is out of control. To put things in perspective, and what we said at our last meeting was we were going to do some comparative analysis. And so here you can see in this graph, and it's a little small, so I'll read it from top to bottom. We compared some other Florida communities, starting with Green Cove Springs, then Live Oak, Inverness, Perry, High Springs, Lecanto, Hernando, Alachua, and Newberry. And the top chart with the blue bars on the left and the yellow bars on the right is population versus land area. And as you can see, Newberry has a modest population, kind of in line with those other smaller communities throughout Florida, but you have a tremendous land area. So this is not a very densely populated community. The second chart deals specifically with land area in square miles versus population. And so we took even a broader stretch there and said, well, let's look at Newberry, Alachua, Wildwood, Bartow, Ocala, Daytona, Fort Myers, Lakeland, Gainesville, and St. Petersburg. And Newberry at about 53 square miles, with other cities that had about 50 to 60 square miles in their corporate limits, had tremendously huger populations. So you can see like St. Pete only has about 61 square miles, and they have almost 1/3 people. You're way at the top of that list with 7,847 people. Okay, so Newberry is a not densely, or is a undense population here. Very surprising, because we thought it'd be a little bit higher on the graph. And in fact, this does track with over the last several years that the growth rate is going at about 4 to 5% here in the community. It is not a runaway train. We also looked then at the distribution of land uses, okay? And so Newberry's future land use changes from 2013 to 2023 for the last decade has seen the largest switch from agriculture land to other types. No surprise, you have a majority of agricultural land, so that's what shifts. But interestingly enough, when we take that same sort of comparative analysis and look at the future land use compared to other communities, and from left to right, that's Newberry, Alachua, Gainesville, High Springs, Live Oak, and Green Cove Springs, Newberry has an abundance of green, and that is agricultural land. In fact, your classifications of commercial, industrial, mixed use, and residential are the smallest portions. And if you look at High Springs, let's say like about in the middle of the chart, they're almost 80% residential in nature. Although it feels like about the same kind of place. Small, rural, north central Florida community with surrounding farmland. But I thought this was interesting because this shows that Newberry isn't losing its character. There's a long way before you're going to run out of green in Newberry here. So we also then compared the future land use maps from your comprehensive plan. The left is 2013, the right is 2023, and you can see that that pattern of Newberry, which is the large green area, really hasn't changed all that dramatically. There are some areas, let's say like east of the concrete cement plant, that have annexed into the community, and some of the annexations have occurred along the county line, but there really hasn't been a tremendous switch from green to red, like ag to commercial, or green to yellow, ag to residential. Where it is happening is closer to the core of the city on State Road 26 and 2741 or State Road 45.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
just kind of curious, do you have a graph of this type of information for Alachua County itself, for the,
The county would have to hire him.
No, county wouldn't have to hire us, but no, we could put that together, like what the blends are, sure. Because
I'd
they're,
be kind of curious as to what their,
what their breakouts are.
what their ratio
Okay.
to.
I know, Silas and Romy are already nodding. They are the GIS specialists that help us tremendously with this. So yes, we'll have that for our next workshop.
Although I just want to point out, because I get that question a lot about Alachua County, and I think it's important for people to begin to remember, if they've ever forgotten, that the county isn't a city, right? Like, counties and cities are just inherently different things. And I know that in Alachua County, sometimes it's hard to tell that difference, but, the county is supposed to push growth to municipalities, because that's what municipalities do. The county is not really supposed to be into economic development, those kinds of activities. So I would expect to see a county that is mostly agriculture, because if it's not ag, it should be located inside of a city. So it's going to be interesting information to see, but it just is important to remember that counties and cities are supposed to have a different perspective. They're supposed to be working on different things.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, but I was just kind of curious what the density was as far as like when you get out to the Jonesville area, which
Yeah.
is
Exactly.
Alachua County. And, I mean, they continue to build and everything over there, but they seem to try to do whatever they can to hinder us from our growth, so.
Yeah. We'll have that information for the next meeting. But on that very note, that doesn't show you the total 900 square miles of Alachua County, but it makes an interesting comparison. So you see in the area where the black shading is in Newberry, you can recognize that form as part of your downtown core. It runs north-south along 2741, State Road 45, and then east-west along Newberry Road. You can see also in High Springs, you can see that black area there. That's its kind of core downtown where there are higher densities, commercial land use. And you can see where Alachua's exist. And interestingly too, when we call this urbanized here, in Alachua, it's got that bit that's over on the far east side of the city, which is Turkey Creek or Plantation Oaks. But then look inside the red rope there of Gainesville. It's highly populated along the Archer Road and 20th Avenue corridors and all the way from like Newberry Road all the way over pretty much the east side of town. So to Commissioner Farnsworth's questions, yes, we can put this together, and we sort of did, but we will have a more definitive percentage table for you, an area. But that's kind of roughly looking just at, to the mayor's point, Alachua County, all that area where you can clearly see the aerial that doesn't have the white shading on it, that's all rural ag. That's all effectively green area or preservation, conservation, like Paynes Prairie, San Velasco, Hammock State Park, and so forth. When talking about transportation, and the way that we solicited for input was having multiple tables set up around the community center. People like to gravitate to this table because what we heard was there's poor quality on certain roads, and it pointed to county roads specifically. Not a lot of focus toward, well, the city isn't upkeeping its roads, but like County Road 337, it was a lightning rod. And there were people, how are you going to consider doing anything out there? That road is in terrible condition. Well, as you recall a few moments ago when I was talking about how elements in the comprehensive plan are interrelated, that's a portion of intergovernmental coordination. And that is a part of, what your relationship is with Alachua County and how Alachua County programs its transportation funds, and says, we need to sprinkle those around because we are clearly hearing that in portions of the city, we are having county roads that are not being kept up to standard for the level of traffic they have. We also heard that people have a tough time making it from the west side of the city to Jonesville to go work in the Publix, or to go to Gainesville at certain times of day, that the traffic here on State Road 26 is very heavy. And a few folks said that they're experiencing speeding in residential areas. It wasn't a large comment, but it was out there. On the pro side of saying, what would you like to see, there was surprisingly a statement for, we'd like a shuttle or some bus service that would get us from Newberry to Gainesville to major employers. North Florida Regional Medical Center, Butler Plaza, UF Health and the VA, and the downtown court system. If there was some form of public transportation in the future that would provide transportation from the core Newberry to core employment centers. And then here you see improving the sidewalks to the downtown schools, and again, leveraging the one-way pairs to make the downtown a stronger urban pedestrian form. So looking at this, we looked at FDOT's average annual daily trips, or the AADT, as the engineers call it, and you see that, no surprise, as you head east on Newberry Road, the further east you go from the county line, through the city, around Doc Corrales, and then on the run in toward Jonesville, the traffic picks up, and it picks up pretty rapidly, where you've got the vast majority of the trips on the east side of the city, where all the trips accumulate and head toward Gainesville. We also saw that there was increase in traffic on 235A going to Alachua, and there was some growth, but not tremendous growth on 2741 going north-south. When it came to housing, what we heard from a few folks, there's too much of it. You've got too many residential out here. We want higher quality residential. We didn't really hear a lot of comments on diversity of housing, meaning what are you going to do about having townhomes? What are you going to do about having workforce housing or affordable housing? But more of the language was like attainable housing, so that subdivisions weren't one type of product. There wasn't just one lot size with one price point that a community or a neighborhood could be built that would allow somebody to live in it, perhaps with a starter home. They might upgrade again, and then they might downsize, but live in the same place. Because a common comment that was coming through was, this is where I want to be. I don't want to be here temporarily. This is where I want to be. We displayed to the public the residential permit volume, and as you all know, that sits right at about 105 to 120 permits per year, which is a manageable number. About twice a week out of the 52 weeks of the year, you're getting a permit in here. We've seen that you've had modest increases in residential permits over the last decade, and you're slightly outpacing Alachua right now. Definitely not outpacing the city of Gainesville, outpacing High Springs, tremendously outpacing Live Oak and Green Cove Springs, even though Green Cove is located on the St. Johns River. So you're at a very modest number of permits. When it comes to home values, interestingly enough, your values per square foot, okay, are sitting nominally in that 115 to 120 mark, which is really right on par with Alachua and High Springs. And so, again, to a point that Commissioner Farnsworth and the mayor were speaking of, it is attractive to live out here because your dollar does go farther. Now, you consider on this table, though, Gainesville is showing a lower value. That's because there's so much more housing stock there, and there are some things there that are built that are not expensive. But you are on par with your other, what I would call, rural sister cities here on the west side of Alachua County, those being High Springs and Alachua. One thing that we did find, though, is that there are very few opportunities for what we would consider any sort of multifamily housing, meaning an attached single-family home, a townhome, a condominium, or other type attached housing product. And that's something that you all might want to consider. So in our next meeting, what we'll be asking for is, based on this information, and I know it's a lot to take in one evening, that's why you have the printed copies, and you can certainly always call us individually. we want to start thinking about what you all want to help define the next 25 years here in the city. We did get a fair amount of comments, even though we were kind of focused on land use, transportation, and housing. But what we heard when it came to recreation open space was people were very, very strong about, we want more public parks and playgrounds. We want youth sports. We want trails for walking and biking for an alternative to driving, and a community pool kept floating forward, no pun intended. So here's where we are. We have had the initial community input 2 sessions at the community center next door. We've done our comparative analysis, which we will continue to do throughout the process, and now we're about at the point where we're going to be formulating new language. Based on what your comp plan says today, at our next meeting, we are going to bring to you, and you will have it in advance, some language that talks about diversity of housing, balance of land use to recreation for housing, commercial, recreation, and so forth, and some new transportation language, maybe changing the title of the element from the traffic element to the mobility element, or, transportation and mobility in the city, something like that that looks at the broader spectrum rather than just moving cars, okay? Nextly, those elements will be intermeshed with the elements that city staff are working on, so that we are all pointing these together, so that when you all are at the point of transmitting this to Tallahassee, that all these arrows here from future land use are all on target and all matched together. Because ultimately, as the city commission, you are looking at what your citizens are saying when they bend your ear at the restaurant or the gas station or in meetings, as well as what we're hearing, and you're helping refine those sentences and how those actual goals, objectives, and policies point toward your future, and then how your professional staff manages the growth and the economics effectively of the city as a whole. Out of all those issues, it will be your job to be the prioritizers and decide what requires the most attention and what is closest to your heart. Preserving rural character, inhibiting more residential, encouraging commercial and job growth, encouraging downtown investment, leveraging the one-way pairs, improving walkability throughout the downtown and from subdivisions being built around the city to the downtown, diversifying the housing stock type and quality, enhancing infrastructure, more work for Jamie, the 15th hat he'll wear, expanding the recreation facilities, and maybe anything else. So that's where we are at this point in time. Meeting number 1, warmed my heart to see 50 people there, and it was a bustling meeting, and there were tense words, some hot words here and there, and then settled folks down, and then took the input. I was a little disappointed when we only had 10 at the second, so we hope that in our next meeting, which will be a workshop format, that the message can get out there on Facebook and can get out there in any way possible to get as many people here, because truthfully, these plans are enhanced by more people providing input so that you as the elected officials can steer the language into what you want this community to be. So with that, back to our schedule. August, September, October, and November, we hope to be done at the end of the year. So over the next several months, this effort will pick up some steam and momentum, and you'll see us more frequently here, probably almost on a monthly basis, as we put these language pieces in front of you for ultimately your adoption and transmission to the state of Florida. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Under 3 hours.
Excellent presentation, excellent data, the graphs. I mean, I think we all kind of consume that information, and we appreciate the ability to look at things slightly differently. And I would say that when we come back for the third meeting, we'll do our best to push out. Newberry likes to get everything done in one meeting. That's why everybody came to the first one. So we're done, right?
Yeah.
But on that list of priorities, I can think of something that this board is doing right now to already address just about all of them. So I think that somehow we need to include that into the conversation, that,
Sure.
When we're hearing these things from our residents, we also want to say, yeah, we just did an urban overlay, right, to create that higher level development, right? That way we can let folks know exactly what we're already doing. Any questions for before we move on? All right.
All righty.
Thank you, sir. We
Thank you
appreciate
all.
your time. Appreciate the work you're doing. Like we said, the
Glad to be here.
comprehensive plan. We got the charter, and then it's the comprehensive plan in terms of, in my mind anyway, in terms of importance of documents. So Dallas, come on down and talk to us about our fiscal year. We're broke, no money. Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, he summed it up pretty well. Mr. Mayor, we have completed our audit for fiscal year 2022, which ended just a brief 9 months ago. As you know, the City Commission hires an external independent auditor to review the city's financial practices and our financial statements. And so tonight, Barbara Boyd, partner with Purvis and Gray, will be presenting the results of our financial audit from 2022.
Come on down, ma'am. It's good to see you again.
It's good to see everybody, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. I apologize, I don't have the same energy as Mr. Diedenbach, so.
He's up there breathing that low oxygen.
Yeah, right, and I also need to
environment.
lower this for me. All right, yeah. But yeah, so I'm here to present the results of the fiscal year 22 audit. You should have received a bound book with a letter inside. I won't open this book unless y'all have specific questions on that. I'll actually go through go through a brief summary at the PowerPoint presentation. So, to get started, this is a summary of all the reports that are included in the bound financial statements. The first is, and the most important, is the auditor's opinion on the financial statements and the note disclosures. So this is your pass-fail report, and you passed. You received a clean opinion, an unmodified opinion, which is the highest level of assurance that we as auditors can provide. Second, and towards the back of the report, there's 5 or 6 other reports that we issue. So the first on there is the report on internal control and internal control over financial reporting and on compliance and other matters. So as part of any audit, we don't audit your internal controls, but we do review them to assist in our risk assessment process. And during that, if we identified any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses, we include them in this report. So this year, there was one finding, and it was on the timeliness of bank reconciliations. Unfortunately, this year you had some, fiscal year 22, there were some extenuating circumstances that required your finance director to be pulled away from those duties, and so the bank reconciliations fell behind. But bank recs are one of the key components in many different areas and processes of your financial reporting. And so it's really important to continue doing those timely. And management's response is included in the bound report. It's the last letter in there. I believe that has been remedied. Few other reports that we issue is an examination. The Auditor General requires that we issue an examination report on compliance with the local government investment statute. No issues to report there. You also have you had a federal and a state single audit this year. The federal single audit was a shortened version. It was an examination report on your ARPA funding. No issues to report there. We take a deep dive into both your federal and your state grants and make sure that you're compliant with all the requirements that of the grants, and we also look at internal controls over compliance. So again, all those clean reports, no issues to report. And finally, we issue a management letter in accordance with the rules of the Auditor General, and this would include any information or any findings that just didn't rise to the level of a significant deficiency or a material weakness, and there were no reportable issues in that letter. So you also received the separate letter we call the required communications letter, and that letter includes certain information that helps you assess the results of the audit, and it includes some other information that helps you review your financial statements that may not be readily apparent. So first is the accounting policies, and those are described in Note 1 to your financial statements. There was one change in accounting policies this year, and that was the implementation of a new accounting standard, GASB 87, on leases. So that required some extra time from your team to gather all those lease documents and evaluate that information to implement the new standard. there's some significant estimates that are included in your financial statements. So for example, management has to determine what the useful life of an asset might be, and that affects your depreciation expense. Or your net pension liability, your total OPEB liability, your lease receivables, those are all significant estimates that are included in your financial statements. So we evaluate management's estimates, and we determine that they're consistent from year to year, that there's no management bias included in there. So those were all fine. Financial statement disclosures are neutral and consistent. We had two adjustments, significant adjustments that were detected as part of the audit process. Both of those increased your receivables, and they had to do with the SRF loan and the grant expenditures. Those were about almost $300,000 in total. And then there was one error that we identified that was not material, but that was not corrected. Management is in the process of correcting that. It's just not reflected in your financial statements as of 9/30/22, and that was about $6,700 is what we estimated. No difficulties encountered in performing the audit and dealing with management. We certainly appreciate the time that goes into preparing for the audit. It's not an easy process, and we always enjoy working with your team. So. That's it on the report side. I'll go through a couple of financial highlights.
Any questions on that side before we move on? Okay, move right along.
Yeah. The financial highlights for the general fund. So here you have your revenues and expenditures for 2022 and 2021. So these were pulled, 2022 is pulled from your financial statements, 2021 is from last year's financial statements. But you can clearly see the increase here, and your total revenues was about $1.3 million. Your expenditures also increased $1.2 million. On the revenue side, I think the growth, or the increase can be attributed to both growth and just the bounce back from COVID. There's the numbers from last year were slightly lower than they typically are. So, and then on the expenditure side, you're seeing a $1.2 million increase, and those were about half of it was personnel cost increases, and the other just general operating inflation, just general increases. But your net change in fund balance is still an increase of $684,000 versus $554,000 last year. So you're seeing you had a better year this year than you did the year before. And moving on to the next page, what that looks like on your balance sheet is you see your total assets are up $760,000. So that $680,000 increase in fund balance was primarily a cash increase. And looking at your fund balance at the end of the year, so you ended the year with $4.2 million. Most of that is an unassigned fund balance, but there were increases in both in restricted, assigned, and unassigned fund balance. But looking at the table at the box below, your unassigned and assigned fund balance is $3.6 million in total. This is from management's discussion from the MD&A and your financial statements. You have a target of 17% as your reserves, which is a healthy reserve to have. That's 1.5 million of it. And then you have your stabilization fund, which is about 3 to 6% is what you aim for, 6% being the max, and that's $450,000, which leaves you with available carry forward funds as of 9/30/22 of 1.6 million. Of that, 760,000 was assigned to the fiscal year 23 budget, so that leaves you with the remaining available carry forward funds of $865,000 as of 9/30/22. And then looking at your enterprise funds, again here we have the income statement, and you can see that your total revenues are up 1.9 million and your total expenses are 2.2 million. It's not difficult to see here what the major increase was, and that's your purchase power cost on your electric. So I can see that increase $1.6 million. That cost is passed through to customers, so you see it in revenues as well, that $1.7 million increase. You also had a significant increase in your capital grants and contributions. It was about $1.8 million. About half of that was ARPA funding that was used for wastewater infrastructure. And then looking at your balance sheet for the enterprise funds, we'll go straight to the net position. You can see your net investment in capital assets is up $4.3 million, while your unrestricted is down about $700,000. And all that is telling me is that you're reinvesting in your infrastructure. So you're using some of your unrestricted funds to generate capital assets. So that was all I had. I'm happy to answer any questions.
No, it all sounds good. Questions for the board? Questions for the board?
Good job, team.
Yep. All right. We appreciate it. Thank you. It's just one more hat. One more hat, yeah.
Another one of the hats.
Accounting's on the trophies.
Yeah. No, we do appreciate it. It's been great working with you guys, and it's been great. Past few years, we've had the, can't remember the phrase, no comments, the highest rate, and that's exactly what we expect, where we want to be at. So thank you so much. Appreciate it. Drive safe. Okay, that brings us to recreation update. And before we do the recreation update, this is actually Park and Recreation Month, so I have a proclamation to read into the record, and then we'll hear a little bit about our Parks and Rec Department, which we heard so much about in our comprehensive plan. So whereas Parks and Recreation is an integral part of communities throughout this country, including the city of Newberry, and whereas the department promotes health and wellness, improving the physical and mental health of people who live near parks, whereas Parks and Recreation encourages time spent in nature, which positively impacts the mental health by increasing cognitive performance and well-being, and alleviating illnesses such as depression, attention deficit disorders, and Alzheimer's. Whereas Parks and Recreation encourages physical activities by providing space for popular sports, hiking trails, swimming pools, and many other activities designed to promote active lifestyles. And whereas the department increases a community's economic prosperity through increased property values, expansion of the local tax base, increased tourism, the attraction and retention of businesses, and crime reduction. And whereas our parks and natural recreation areas ensure the ecological beauty of our community and provide a place for children and adults to connect with nature and recreate outdoors. And now, therefore, I, Jordan Marlowe, Mayor of the City of Newberry, on behalf of the City Commission, now proclaim July as Parks and Recreation Month, in witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand this 24th day of July, 2023. Happy Parks and Recreation Month, everybody. Get out there and play something, but not between 11 a.m. and 4 o'clock, because it's way too hot, right? No heat strokes in our parks. All right, Travis, tell us a little bit about. Yeah.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. I am here to provide a recreation update. I started this presentation this morning, so I got to about 15 slides, and I'm going to try to run through them quick. Our team, comprised of the same folks that you guys probably remember the last time you were, or last time I was up here. I do have Ryan Young, if you'll raise your hand. If you haven't met Ryan, he is the Assistant Director for the Recreation Department, so he's here to get some of the glory. We are offering your general youth sports, baseball, softball, basketball, volleyball, the normal things, spring, summer, and fall, basketball in the winter. We did start 7-on-7 football in the spring. It actually went pretty well. I think it's going to continue to grow. We're always looking for something new, something different. Sometimes it's hard to get programs off the ground unless you have other places and teams to play. So some ideas get squashed pretty quick, but 7-on-7 I think could and will work. Participation numbers, these are just general numbers that you can look at. It doesn't really tell you much aside from some growth. Spring 23, we had 549 participants. Fall, 623. A lot of those kids are playing in the spring and the fall. Fall and winter gets kind of difficult if they're playing basketball, but most of those kids make it work. So we're hovering around 500 to 600 participants a season. For the numbers, as far as each sport, we still have 2023 fall registrations open. Football closed today, but we get a lot of registrants after. So you can kind of get an idea of where we are. Indoor sports are our highest, aside from soccer. attribute that to volleyball growing, basketball, but maybe AC, I don't know. Some more numbers. I kept 2018 on there to kind of see where we were 5 years ago, and some of the growth. 2023 numbers are all downward only because we haven't completed our registration. Generally, I don't add those, but I think it's good to see, we're still, I don't know, 3/4 of the way through, and we're probably going to meet or exceed the numbers that we had in the previous season. And that's not broken down by spring or fall. That's just in total. Trends, I missed those trends. 46%, 49% in volleyball and basketball, as far as increase in participation in that time frame from 2018. And then soccer and football, those are the two that I've seen, 10%, 9% down, but it comes and goes. And I think a lot of times we offer flag football for older participants. We go up to 12 years old. And I think sometimes that reflects in our tackle numbers. Some of our events, just things that we do. We host a lot of our own events, Act 4 Sports. We also host other events, PGF, softball events when they have overflow from Champions Park. We have clinics, camps, volleyball, adult basketball now. We're doing 3v3. So that's kind of fun to get other participants out there. MLK, some events that we have, not sure why it's covered up there, but some of the events that we have, some back to school programs, Martin Luther King Jr. celebration, toy giveaway, My Time, does tutoring there, which is an amazing program. A lot of participation, and it keeps people in and out of the building, which is important. Tasha did, I don't know if anybody saw, but she did a senior prom and held it at the municipal building. It was awesome. A ton of participation and really well done. The one dressed in brown? Yeah. Some senior programming. Tasha's also spent a lot of time working on that program. It is a big hit. It's something that we need to do more of, something that we continue to evaluate. What programs can we bring that will elevate our senior programming? So we're going to continue focusing on that. Something is a staple that we do, but this past year I believe the Martin Luther King Jr. celebration was the best one that we've had yet. I believe we had the most participation, and I believe that it was the most well-run event that we've had. Could be attributed to moving it indoors. It makes that controlled environment a little better for setup and stuff like that, but it was a really well-attended event. Westfest, in line with the MLK celebration, was also one of our best attended events. I think it had the most participants that we've seen come out and attend a concert, so it went really well. If you came, we appreciate that. If not, come next year. It's going to be good. Christmas capital of Alachua County. We're just going to talk kind of a few things that the rec department does that you might not think they do. So we do a lot of Christmas stuff, tree lighting ceremony. We work with other departments and just trying to bring the, I want to say, the thoughts.
Christmas spirit.
Yeah, the thoughts from what we want to do to become the Christmas capital of Alachua County, and then actually put that into action. And I think we have a good start, and we're on our way. Community engagement, things that we do. We partner with the Newberry Area Chamber of Commerce to bring Movie in the Park. And on the first Fridays, we do those things. That's our staff out there celebrating the high school baseball team going to state. One of our employees was on the team, so. Champions Park, can't really read the calendar, but it's just to kind of give you a visual of the events that are held out there. It's been a pretty packed spring, summer, and then will be in the fall as well. A lot of large events. Show Me the Money event is huge. A ton of college coaches. Some projects that we're doing, obviously not a comprehensive list, But we are working on the multipurpose fields at Easton. We're finally getting that process moving with the Suwannee River Water Management District, and deeding the property over, so that is on its way forward. Enhanced parking at Easton, we are working on the design now, hope to have that completed in the next couple months, and in construction. Jimmy Durden Park Field, we are working on the renovation of the second baseball field. It will be a completely renovated park at that point, minus parking and a few small improvements. But if you haven't been over there, it is becoming a really beautiful park. South Soccer Field renovation, that was just a whim. Came in and we leveled it, and we just plugged some grass on it. It was deteriorating, so just a little project there. And then we're working on the Veterans Memorial Park. That's something that we're just getting underway. Again, not comprehensive, but just a few things that we're working on.
Questions from the board?
Yeah,
Commissioner Coleman?
the pickleball courts, that's all I'm hearing, pickleball, whatever that thing is,
So, I have good news. We are in the budget that you guys approved, or approving, will approve. We have 2 basketball courts that we are renovating, and when we do that, we're gonna do Freddie Wormack, and I believe we're going to do Jimmy Durden. We're gonna have pickleball lines painted on those, and then when the budget's approved and we get the other pickleball courts, we're working on the possible location, whether that's Easton High School, but in the works. Something that we desperately need.
how many?
4.
Okay.
Are they gonna be pickleball and tennis courts combination, or?
We will include tennis. I mean,
Net shorter or something?
well, a lot of times, pickleball is really movable. So you just need the lines. They can bring their own nets. So you can set your posts. They have inserts for tennis, and when you want to run tennis, you just put those in, run your net out, and then most of the time we would keep it off because no one really plays tennis.
Travis, I remember, I don't know, 5, 6 years ago, Commissioner Coleman was really pushing for lacrosse fields. And now that he's gotten older, he's gone to pickleball courts, so.
That is a trend. I think
Yeah,
it's definitely something that's happening. Lacrosse, we can play lacrosse on the multipurpose fields. Again, that's a small niche of teams
Yeah.
and places to play, so that kind of came and went. But I mean, it's still a thing.
what about croquet?
Not really our thing either.
You don't wanna mess with me.
Are you the champion of croquet?
The team, our staff team doesn't wanna mess with me either. It's pretty serious.
Look, man, I can ride a unicycle.
Can you? It's impressive.
Commissioner Clark, you got a question?
Travis, I had someone reach out to me, and the question was, and I think you touched base on it, there is such a need supposedly for all this sports for these young people, and then during the summer, there is just another need for families to have something to do with all the sports and all what we do for the kids, to go somewhere at nighttime to do something. So somebody reached out to me, is there any kind of incentive or any kind of help that can cross between what we do in the city to help them get started? Or is there any, I know there's an economic development, maybe some money if they revamp a building or bring something to town. Is there anything there to do to help civilian population versus what we are here in the government?
Water park.
No, I'm talking funding.
I mean,
Maybe that's an offline question. We'll
yeah,
get
let's talk
together and-
what
And I'll make them reach out to
specifically.
you.
Sounds good.
Commissioner Maison?
Well, kind of like to piggyback with Mark Clark. So could we use like our facility to like for instance, Easton, open it up to the kids at a certain time, whether it's from, I don't know, 4 till 7 or whatever it is, or from when school gets out to whenever it is.
We can. I will say that we are jam-packed from Monday through Friday. I'd say 5 years ago, we were running, only people wanted to practice on Mondays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and we would go till about 8:30. Now we're Monday through Friday till 9:30. And we are cramped for space, and I think that as we continue to to grow and build and add on. That's going to open up opportunities for us to have other programs, have the ability to have an open gym. Those are all things that we need, but we are pretty much open every day of the week, and it's jammed.
And volleyball's pretty big now there too.
It's huge. We do have, I believe, the most participants locally in that sport, and I don't see it stopping. So we've implemented this season cutoffs. In the past, we hadn't. So we would continue to accept registration, and then it would overfill teams. So now we're going to the wait list because we are cramped for space.
Other questions? Travis, I have just one, and it's the age-old question of how do we communicate to our residents all the services that we already are offering, right? Because I get questions about senior activities, we're doing senior activities. I get questions about walking trails, we've got walking trails. Can the Parks and Rec Department do a did you know series of social media posts and focus on, I know you guys do that already, but choose the same kind of color scheme, same kind of, format, and then just put in, we'll focus on senior activities for a month, and then we'll focus on walking trails for a month, those kinds of things. Because there's almost, besides for the pickleball, there's almost no requests I get that we don't have some offering for. And I know a lot of it we'll do, we heard tonight about, if we only had a bus that would take people into town. Well, how many times we have tried to run a bus in this community, and every time we bring a bus, we can't get anybody on the bus. I remember riding the bus back and forth myself, just trying to get the numbers up on the bus, So, we offer all of these things, but how to communicate that information out, right, is always the problem. And then if we can do that, if you guys can all try to, if you're on social media, try to share it around, and then maybe we could do utility bill inserts at the same time. I find that you have to try to communicate with people about 20 different ways for them to catch one of them, right? And it's very hard on our end, I get that, but it's, besides for the pickleball, almost every request I get, we either offer it or we just did a whole year of offering it and nobody participated,
Yeah, I think we also have programs that are underutilized for that reason,
Yeah.
such as the senior prom. I think that was she did such a good job, and it probably didn't get the recognition out
Right.
there that, and I think that if people would see that, they'd feel.
Is that gonna become a yearly, is that the idea? Because I think that could
It
grow.
will.
I hear especially from elderly people, they'd love to have a dance, And I know the Lions Club tried to put one on, and same thing, couldn't really sell a whole lot of tickets. But if it becomes sort of an annual event, because the pictures from it were amazing,
They were.
you know.
We'll work on the social media side of things, do some digi-nos and do that marketing.
How many people take advantage of the walking trail around Easton? Do you know? Do you have anybody?
Not very many.
Just started deer hunting season.
It's just,
Hey, I got an idea, a digital billboard out here.
Digital, that's a good idea.
Hey.
Just came up with it, yeah.
Mr. Mayor,
Mike?
I think one of the things that will help is for folks to follow. We have a recreation
We do.
page that is separate
That's what
from
I'm
the
asking.
city page.
If he'll put it out there, we share it and ask people to follow that.
That following really helps.
Yeah.
I get overwhelmed with it all. I'm like, why does he have to post so much stuff? I'm about to block him as a friend. No, I'm kidding. But
he
I
likes
think-
every one of them too. I'm proud of him.
Yeah, I try to like them all, but I think that's important. Is if you
Yeah.
it's kind of like active listening.
Right.
Yeah, you got to be actively looking and liking our page and following us. I think puts more of those posts in front of you. And then if you like them, when you see them, whether you do them or not, you'll see more.
Yeah.
But
I
does,
agree.
does the recreation department have their own website?
We do not have our own website.
See, that's what you really need, because a lot of people aren't doing social media.
TikTok.
So,
Well, you do have a page.
I do
on
have.
our
We do have a
website.
page on the City of
Right, so
Newberry
you go to the
website.
city of Newberry, then you can go to Parks and Rec, and you can
Correct.
see all of that. It's just not a standalone
No.
website.
But it does take you to a thing
Takes you to
that
Newberry
category,
parcel.
I mean, is it easy to go through?
It's
or-
actually pretty nice. You can get in there and it has a lot of information on all of our parks, all of our programs. There's hyperlinks to take you to registration. It'll take you to our rec desk page where you can see all the registration information.
Anything else? Thank you, Travis. Appreciate you.
I'm gonna stay up.
All right, you want to introduce our City Hall design update? Go ahead, Travis.
I am also here to change the recreation hat. We are talking about City Hall and the design updates. I want to introduce Mr. Barnett Chenault from Monarch, Chris Gregory from Scorpio is here also for any questions that you may have. This design is based off of the feedback that we received from you all previously, with some changes to the facade. I don't want to dig too much.
Thank you, Travis. Good evening, everyone. All right, very excited to be here with you today. It's been a little while since we had opportunity of talking specifically about the design of the project. We've had a few conversations over the recent months, but most of that was with regards to moving forward with the design, the construction process of it. So bringing you back a few months to where we left this off at, we had an initial concept that we put together, and it's up on the screen in front of you. And just saying an initial concept is just that. It's the first bite of the apple to say, all right, this is the idea of a concept that will fit on the site. It will meet the majority of the needs for what we want to achieve in this area. Since that time, we've been working behind the scenes to collaborate with our civil engineers, our structural engineers, staff, and pretty much all of the groups that are needed in order to refine the needs of this project, right? So we get the floor plan locked in as far as what staff needs, the square footage. We worked with site and civil to figure out some of the nuances of the outside parking lot and how to deal with this grade change that you see right outside the door, right? So those are things that are refined in the background while we're working through all of this. And so where we stand today is we now have a decent idea and bones of what is a practical, realistic solution that can work outside of this area, right? So it gives us context to move forward from here. Speaking of context, though, in order to have a really useful conversation about this, I think we need to look at the regional context of how other groups have done this in this area. I say this, though, that we need to look at it, but we don't need to emulate it or seek to adopt it in our own sense, right? It's just to give you a perspective of how other cities have adopted and made some of these decisions. So we'll start with City of Williston, right? So one of the things that actually sticks out about City of Williston is, at first glance, it has a very modern structure inside of that city, right? There are very little historical elements that are carried in towards it. It's mostly defined by this really modern storefront material, metal roofing. Really the only masonry that you see on it are these pillars that are right at the main entry. It does have a main entry that all of these city halls need to have in some way, but if you look at this, it actually is a pretty modern take on what a city hall can be and steers away from kind of those traditional elements, which was one of the major feedbacks that we got last time around, right? So in moving forward, we adopted the comments that you gave us and kind of continue to evolve the project. Looking at Gainesville went in a very different direction. I attached a original snapshot of what their city hall used to be and what it is today. So very modern structure, really almost a brutalist structure. It moved away from almost anything of the traditional sense. The materials are very modern. The storefront and fenestration kind of separates the building and is a very strong deviation from its original heritage. Looking at Alachua City Hall, again, you end up with a very modern structure, right, where you have these materials that are on there that there's some brick, which is a traditional element, but the reality of it is you have this screen that's in front of it, which is this modern stucco column that's rectilinear, and it gives a nod towards some of the older elements, but really, I wouldn't classify it as a historic structure or traditional structure by any means. All that to say, those are how people have responded to it in this area. So the question really today, though, is how do we design a city hall that is unique to Newberry and not one that is seen around these areas? And to do that, we need to look at the local context, more so than the regional context. And when you start looking at that, the defining elements in this area are the church right here on the corner, the municipal building that's right here on the other side of this current building that we're in, the current city hall, and some of the elements that you see that are repeated over and over in this area are some of the natural stone, church stone, right, that is natural in this area, actually one of the reasons why Newberry was founded originally. It also is coupled with some of the brick that you see on the church, white brick. And then it has more of these traditional rounded arches, as well as some tower elements to give it some height in this area. So one of the comments that came up multiple times when we were working through this is that our new city hall must be a fresh take on a traditional design, providing our residents with an outstanding quality of life while maintaining our historical heritage. And if you look at the surrounding context, these buildings have done a good job of emulating just that. And so we need to steer our new design in that direction. And so to achieve that, we put together this concept. And again, you can see the rounded arches that are indicative all around this area. We moved away from these half arches in the original concept. It integrates some of the window elements that you see in the original city hall that's here. It expresses the church stone, but it keeps it to a minimum because that stuff's expensive these days. But it also has the white brick that is prominent on this corner. So it acts as a canvas to kind of mold all these traditional pieces together, but also give it a much more fresh, cleaner take on how to build a 12,000 square foot building in this area. So once again, you have what tops it off is this upper cornice that is also similar that you can see on the tower that's over here on the right of the church, and this prominent entry feature that angles itself mostly out of the necessity to be seen from the street side that's projecting on.
Can I ask, I can't tell if the picture of the revised concept is kind of concave, and I don't know the architectural word, but the top of the center columns, is that still sort of angled to the side, or is that a trick of the way that it's concaved?
The front entry
it's
is
straight.
angled. The front entry is angled towards the street.
Is angled straight? I'm talking about the rooftop. Is it angled this way, or
No,
is it angled back? Okay.
the rooftop is actually just aligned orthogonally with the.
I thought that the picture just looked a little bit,
It's hard to get a great perspective
but
of
in
this
the
one.
backup material, it does look better. Okay, thank you.
And that might give you a little bit better of a
Yes.
look. This is angled with the walkway that addresses First Avenue,
Okay.
or First Street, sorry.
Since I already interrupted the presentation, I think that we're getting a lot closer. I love blending the arches in. When I think about this building and municipal building, the arches, and I know that Ms. Judy can probably speak, and Scott, when they connected it with that walkway, that was, the arches tied both of those in, and it kind of paid homage to the municipal building and those arches that go into there. The windows on the second floor, is it possible to make them arches? And that way we just kind of keep that motif going?
Certainly, we can add arches anywhere to it, but that is also a connection point between this building and the new building. Because if you look at these windows, these windows are all
They're all
square.
square. Okay.
So you have
All right.
elements of that match.
That are
And one thing I
being
will say is it gets a little tight on the
Second floor.
two sides of how the roof actually has to attach to it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Are you ready for questions, or do you got more of the presentation?
I'm ready for questions.
Questions, Commissioner
Okay,
Farnsworth?
so this is the initial
That's the initial.
So all the windows up top have been removed?
The windows up top have not been removed, but actually what you're seeing is a bit of a mirror image from the floor plan standpoint. So one of the requirements that we had to do when coordinating and collaborating with Civil was that the footprint is actually a mirror image, which where you take a stair tower on one side where it has no windows, it gets flipped to the other side. So the windows stay on the second floor. They just are not a one-to-one relationship with where they were at.
I'm kind of looking at all these arches and stuff on the bottom, and then the windows on top, and, you know, I don't see any of that concept there,
Actually, okay, so that actually, that initial concept that you're looking at, I believe it shows a little bit of what the future phase could be. So those windows and those arches that you see would have been phase 2 for this project if you come to the need of expanding it on site. So
Okay,
this
so-
is only showing phase 1, the current rendering that we have up here.
This looks a lot more, I guess, warm would be the word.
Okay.
There's a lot more warmth to it than that seems kind of bland to me.
So a lot of that can be achieved just with the textures that are on there and the final finishes. So if warmth is something that you're looking for, it could be achieved the same way with this.
I like something that's inviting.
I like the way it is. I really like that. You got your regular windows, you got your arches in certain areas, and, I like it.
Yeah, I think that
You're
the
look- if
glass
you're-
entranceway looks great.
Yeah. I think this is good, final out stamp. All right, let's roll.
Other questions, comments, feedback? This is our opportunity to say, hey, like change this, like that kind of thing. Commissioner Martin?
No, Barnett, I think this one gets a lot closer. I mean, depending upon how the bid, would come in, I mean, I would be in favor of this one. This looks a lot better. This, I wouldn't necessarily care for the mural on the side of the building like that, which is, this is the side facing the church, right?
That's the side facing the church, and that is just an option, which, by the way, I'm borrowing from Joel's mural to give him credit for that.
Oh, yeah.
It was hard to find a Newberry mural in this area.
Yeah, I mean, it just looks a little out of place, I don't know, to me. So the existing city hall would be on the backside around behind there, right?
Yes.
You can kind of make it out.
From this perspective, you can kind of see a little bit of the building, but really it'd be blocked by a fence that's there right now.
And this comes out almost pretty close to the roadway, right?
It does.
That's pretty true.
In order to maximize the parking on the site and get the proper clearances and circulation,
Okay.
we have to keep the building at this location.
Okay, and I noticed we're moving the drive-through over to the east elevation in that front corner.
That was part of the mirror to make this work. And that's
Right
being
on.
driven mostly by site requirements and how this can actually function.
Okay.
I like that.
And, yeah, I think it's good.
Okay, so I got lots of head nods. People like it. On the right track. All right, moving on. Thank you, sir. Good work. Excellent.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Travis. You got anything else tonight? How many hats you wearing? Okay. Public announcements. So, ladies and gentlemen, your commission likes to hear from you, and often, so we try to put public announcements at the beginning. We had 5 presentations tonight, so I appreciate you sticking with us. But if you have anything that you'd like to talk to the commission about that's not on the agenda, you have the opportunity to do so. These are 2-minute public comments. If you want to bring up something that's a little more controversial and you need a little more time, we have 5-minute public comments for anything that's not on the agenda at the end of the night. So if you got anything you want to let the commission know now, perfect time to do it, or we can wait till the end of the night. Come on down.
Damn.
Don't forget to say your name for the record.
My name's Marcus Tucker. Thank you. I don't know, do I address you or everyone?
Talk to me,
Okay.
yep.
Well, I think you know why I'm here, because we talked earlier, through Messenger a little bit, but, I'm not happy, and I took a little poll, like I said to you, it's not scientific. But, you know, it was overwhelmingly one-sided. You know, this change.
You gotta let everybody else know what the issue
I'm
is.
sorry. So, what I'm mad, or I say mad, I'm disappointed, displeased, unhappy about, is the change in utility due dates. I mean, it's always been 15th, as far as I've been here. It's how we budget. But, you know, and I think for a lot of folks, your mortgage is due, your car payments are due. I have basically all my credit cards, you know, all due at the end or beginning of the month that tie into each other. Have that middle is a nice little break, but it is nice to take care of things like cell phone, utility payments and whatnot. So I did a poll on Facebook. I just said, you know, who knows if everyone on it, you know, even lives here or has the city of Newberry as their thing. But it was overwhelmingly one side, you know, and I think that's something that should be looked at and not just, I don't understand how it's easier to have it due on the 1st than the 15th. I don't understand how people don't understand how to read their bill, but that's beside the point. That's my 2 cents, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate it. Other public comment?
Gentlemen, I'm Christy Ortiz. I live on County Road 45, State Road 45, and I'm just here about chickens. Chickens. So I found out today that we're limited to 4 chickens, and I thought that was a little crazy because being new to chickens, we didn't realize that there was such a low number for where we live. We have over 3 acres. Some of us have over 4 acres. I know it's not that much, but it's better than some of these newer homes. And I didn't know if there was anyone that would be willing to discuss like talking to me or how we can move forward, maybe fix it, amend it, just so that way we can have chickens.
I think, yeah, if you'll leave your email with Mike or Brian back there, we can figure that out. Because it all is about whether you're in a subdivision or not in a subdivision and those kinds of things. But if you're on 3 acres, that doesn't sound quite right to me, but it seems like we need a little bit more information. So.
And we just amended, we live in an HOA community, but it's pretty simple. It's more for a gated community, if you look. We just approved it. And so we found out there was a lot of, whether it's 10 or 6, and we called code today and we found that it was 4, and we're just like, wow, doesn't seem very accurate. So.
And eggs are expensive. So
I'm kind of over.
Or this way?
We live that way, heading to Archer. Half Moon Station.
Oh, you were in Half Moon?
I am, yes, sir. I saw the name and I was like, oh, I don't know. I've never did this before, so I didn't know what to do or how to address it.
So there is I didn't even know that.
I don't know that they're.
Yeah.
We'll get it figured
Perfect.
out. We'll get it
Awesome.
figured
Well, I
out.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Right, I didn't know there was any problem. You could have all the chickens you wanted. I did not know that.
That's what we were told.
Are you sure that that's not a?
They're gonna figure it out.
Homeowner.
They're gonna figure it out.
So
Yeah. There's something not right, but now's not the time.
Okay,
Brian will
perfect.
figure it out.
Okay.
Well, Mr. just
Yeah.
real quick, simple clarification. If you're in a residentially zoned neighborhood, it's 4 chickens. If you're in agriculturally zoned property, which they are, you have as many chickens as you want or as many as your HOA will allow.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. I knew something. There it is.
There you go.
And tell your son I said hey.
Okay.
Zoning.
Okay. Other public comment.
I'll come buy some chickens.
You got anything? Any other public comment? You want to join on? No? All right. She didn't hear me, but tell your son I said hello. He's coming back to Newberry. Right?
Thank you.
Any other public comment? Any other public comment?
I have one comment.
Go ahead. Public.
I wanted to thank Marcus for actually coming down here and actually talking with us directly and not just being keyboard warrior about that kind of stuff. It's very difficult for us to conduct business through Facebook of any kind. So I'm just glad that you came down here. What's that?
They finally had a Monday night where I could, so.
Thank you.
And just on that point, we're doing this transition so that we can get everybody's utility bill lined up with the usage right there. There will come a time, once we have everybody through, where we will be able to offer the customers the choice about when they want that bill. So this is part of the process. It is also true that the new dates that customers will get their bill, it will be between the 10th and the 12th. So if you really want to pay it in the middle of the month, you can pay it in the middle of the month. The due date will be the 1st, but you'll get the bill at the latest by the 12th. So you could go ahead and pay in the middle of the month, right, in that interim time. So someday soon, within the next year, we'll be able to offer that choice. It won't be something that you can flip-flop back and forth because we have to basically create a whole new account. But in all my years up here, I've dealt with more complaints than I can count with people upset about, I was out of town. I don't know, y'all are scamming me, right? And it's because the bill is 2 or 3 months behind. So now you'll be able to track your usage more closely, which is a benefit. But there is a transition period. But there will come a time when we can offer that choice. We just can't offer it right now in that process. So,
Mr. Mayor,
yes.
during this transition period, with the dates changing and all, are we giving some leniency to
We are.
people?
We've been communicating about this transition. We've talked about it up here probably for the last 6 months. It's
Right.
been utility bills. We've done social media posts. We've done about 6 or 7, as we were talking about with Travis, right? We've done 6 or 7 campaigns to try to let folks know this was coming. I think right now we're waiving, if there's any problem, late fees or stuff like that, with people understanding it.
2-day grace period.
We've added another grace period in.
I saw Marcus's post, but a lot of people said they weren't notified, and
Yeah.
actually there was quite a bit of notification going on, but for whatever reason they missed it.
One way, one day, we will find the magic bullet of how to communicate where everybody sees it. But right now, all we can do is, utility bills, on the website, social media, right? All of the things that we do. But we have been trying for the past few months. We talked about it up here on the dais. When we did it, we talked about how we were communicating, how we were letting folks know. Maybe one day we'll do a fake change the dates and say, oh, now we got your attention. This is going to be real later. It's not real now. See how that goes, right?
Only if you can forward the phones to your cell phone, Mr.
Oh, okay. They all come there anyway, right? All right. Thank y'all. No more public announcements, public. Okay, moving on to consent agenda. I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as it was published. So moved. I have a motion from Commissioner Farnsworth, second from Commissioner Martin. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. That takes us to item 11, which is a request for a waiver of surety requirements and approval of the final plat for Cedar Estates. This is a quasi-judicial, and when we are entering quasi-judicial, it means the commission will stop being a legislative body and will become a judicial board. This means we have to follow certain rules and adhere to a different standard of decision-making. The primary rule we must follow concerns testimony, and the substantial and competent evidence standard must be met when the judicial board makes a decision. This standard states the following, and I quote, all public testimony will be taken under oath. Everyone testifying will be subject to cross-examination. All documents and exhibits should be entered into evidence. The giving of opinion testimony is limited to experts. Closing arguments will be limited to the evidence of record. Now I'm going to ask the city attorney to read into the record the ordinance by title only. Please, sir.
Mr. Mayor, this is resolution number 2023-43, SD 23-07, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Newberry, Florida, approving the final plat entitled Cedar Estates Edition, consisting of the acreage as authorized under Section 5.18 of the City of Newberry Land Development Regulations in the residential single-family RSF 2 zoning district on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida, repealing all resolutions in conflict and providing an effective date. Appropriate motion is to pass resolution number 2023-43 as read by title only.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to ask the clerk if you would please swear in the applicant, staff, and anybody wishing to participate. Are you planning on talking? But stand up just in case. Yeah.
Raise your right hand and state your name correctly. We'll be starting with this side.
John Paul Press, Josh Blackman.
I swear affirm that testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Before we begin, we need to disclose any ex parte communication and to close whether any member physically inspected the property. Ex parte communications are any conversation or transmission of information which may have bearing or influence on any voting member's decision. Commissioner Coleman? None. Commissioner Clark? None. Commissioner Farnsworth? None. Commissioner Martin? No, sir. Commissioner Mazon? None. I'm a non-voting mayor, but I have none either. I'm gonna explain the order of presentations that we will adhere to tonight. We only have one quasi judicial, so we only have to do this once. First, we're gonna hear from staff with an overview. Then the applicant has the right to make a presentation with no time limit. Then we'll hear staff's report and recommendation, also with no time limit. I've not been contacted by anybody wishing to claim a third-party intervener status. That's gonna move us to public comment. Any members of the public here to speak to this agenda item will have 3 minutes to do so. Then we'll hear cross-examinations from the applicant and staff, and then members of the decision-making body through the chair can ask questions of the applicant or staff. Then we'll hear final arguments. Then the city attorney will advise the decision-making bodies applicable law, factual findings, and then we will deliberate, and after deliberation, we'll have a motion to approve or deny or continue. All right, John Paul, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
The applicant doesn't have a presentation, go straight on through.
I will, thank you. John Paul Perez, Planning and Economic Development Department. The request before you tonight is for final plat approval for Cedar Estates addition. This has been before the board in the form of a preliminary plat as well as construction plans. Part of the platting process is they will provide bonding for the improvements that they're going to be making. It's 120% of the cost of the infrastructure improvements. This is a small-scale project, and those bonding requirements, given that water, sewer are present on the site, and it's only 7 lots that are being constructed here, is being requested to be waived along with final plat approval. The subject property is part of the Cedar Estates that we know and love today. There is a portion, the southeast portion, which is not completed. Here in the dark blue is the Cedar Estates plat today, and the lighter blue is the portion that is unimproved, unbuilt, and is part of this request to be platted. What initiated all this was those lots are actually kind of larger than usual, and they also have to provide stormwater. So that's been the impetus for this replat. But through the replat, they were able to get 1 additional buildable lot for a single family. So they will be replatting lots 14 through 19 of the original plat from 1976. Kissel Court is actually gaining 10 feet. It's going from 50 feet to 60 feet, which is a positive. They are now providing stormwater for the area, which was not present previously. It is a slope site to the south, but this will provide retention, so to provide some alleviation from the existing homes that are there today for stormwater retention. All the minimum code requirements are met, and all the density requirements are being met. And again, accompanying this request is the bonding waiver request. And again, because of the scale of the project, it being infill, and the infrastructure being located on site already, staff supporting the request. So this is the existing plat, 6 lots. This is the proposed plat. In blue is the stormwater, and now they have 7 lots. So that completes my presentation. So I'm just going to give you our findings and our recommendations. So we do find the waiver request based on specific conditions. We do support it, and we also find it consistent with the comprehensive plan and land development regulations. I am asking for, the staff is asking for 2 motions tonight from the commission. First motion would be to waive bonding requirements, and then the second motion would be to approve the resolution. You can do it in one motion if you feel appropriate, if that's appropriate. And that completes my presentation.
Okay, thank you, sir. Did you have a presentation? All right. That's going to take us to public comment. Any members of the public here to speak to this agenda item? Seeing none, that's going to take us down. Did you hear anything you want to cross-examine? No. Correct. Okay. Do you want to cross-examine yourself? All right. Members of the decision-making body, do you have any questions?
None for me.
Yeah, I'm okay with it too. Was this brought before us one other,
This is
not
like
too
our
long ago?
3rd time trying to get something done there. So.
What did we vote on the last time?
Last item that you voted on were the construction plans.
Okay.
That's for construction of the road, water, sewer.
In the final plat, right?
Okay.
Bonds on the road and the final plat?
Any other Commissioner Coleman questions?
ain't nothing we can do about, I mean, they gotta have two, I mean, he's losing out on 2 lots. I mean, is there?
The
Ain't
new
no way to.
stormwater regulations.
Yes. Unfortunately, the Water Management District does require this stormwater retention for developments today. It does act as a mitigation measure for potential flood damages that homeowners would have to, address if that were to happen. Newberry does, percolate very well, so it may or may not be. It is a district-wide requirement. And with the replat, he's going from 6 lots today to 7 lots. So even though he is doing the stormwater retention basin, he is actually gaining an additional lot. If he didn't have to do the stormwater, yes, there is a case to be made that he would get more lots. But again, I think it's a preventative measure that's worth the money, worth the investment.
Understand.
Not just for him, but for the neighbors too. The whole neighborhood would benefit from this.
Commissioner Martin?
John Paul, these triangle pieces, were gonna be okay for setbacks and things like that, so we don't have to worry about variances?
These are going to be fun ones for sure. With the number 7 up there, that funky part of the front lot will probably be just a driveway.
Yeah.
We'll work with the applicant as they come in. These are 1/4 acre lots minimum, so they're actually pretty substantially sized lots. So I feel like setbacks will not be an issue when they come in for permit.
Any other comments, questions?
I'd like to meet him or him introduce himself.
All right, applicant, come
I
on
mean,
down.
anybody coming to Newberry to build, I'm happy to meet him.
Sir, Josh Blackford, Turnsole Builders. Grew up in the area and, just love Newberry, so I saw the opportunity. I knew it'd be a challenge, but I'm trying to learn the ropes of development, and, I've been in construction since '05 on the commercial side. I started my own business in '17. So I'm, custom home builder, usually half that, half commercial construction. I'm building the new Bev's building there on 4th now. So wanting to stay in the area, got 22 acres there off 235 that I bought last year. So I'm looking to anchor here, beat him to it. But yeah, I'd like to find some more land like this and, get my feet wet here. Swanee River had something to say about this one, unfortunately, and, it's been a few more ropes than I expected, but here we are, and we're still excited about it, want to get it going, and, I look forward to, I'm going to build all 7 too, not looking to sell any lots or anything, so just get my name out there and go from there. And to your question, we have already laid out each house on the lots with driveways, sent that over to Brian for review through our engineer, and so looks like everything's going to fit in there with driveways. We just got to locate the laterals for the sewers, the last thing we're going to do over the next couple of weeks, and we'll be going from there.
Josh got to start, I don't know if it's actually would start, but I first started working with Josh when he worked with Old Ridge Construction. Josh is the guy that came in and saved DCC when that project was struggling.
That was you?
Yeah, he came in and helped everybody understand the process and those kinds of things. So, local guy, and we appreciate. I normally would say this after the quasi judicial, but this was kind of a no-brainer. Really appreciate coming in and working on some infill, because that's been an issue, and we get that there's some challenges from a commission way previous that created it. So, all right.
Let me add one more thing. Just again, being in the industry for a few years now, worked with a lot of different municipalities, utility departments, and I want to add on to the Jamie thing and his crew. How great they've been. Their response is faster than anywhere else I've seen, and it's a testament to his leadership, the guys that show up on site. You can tell they want to please him and work hard for him, and everybody responds, tremendously, and so we've been very pleased with that. So awesome. Thank you guys. Thanks to the building department.
And Bev's is looking great. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you, sir. Let's see. Where are we at? Final argument. City Attorney, would you please advise decision-making bodies applicable all factual findings?
Substantial and competent evidence.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we'll enter into deliberations. If there are no deliberations, let's separate this into two motions. So if there are no deliberations, I need a motion about the waiver and then a motion about the resolution. Are there any deliberations?
I'll make the first motion to accept the waiver.
Okay, I have a motion from Commissioner Martin to waive. I have a second from Commissioner Coleman to waive the surety. Any comments or questions?
No.
Public comments or questions on that motion?
Just real quickly, Mr. Mayor, the code provides for collateral in such form as approved by the city attorney. I've talked to the manager. He's going to not issue building permits until the roadway and all of the site improvements are to city code. And
Okay.
so that's our other collateral in this instance.
All right. Thank you, sir. No public comment. All those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passed unanimously. Now I'll entertain a motion to pass the resolution.
So moved.
Okay, I have a motion from Commissioner Coleman, a second from Commissioner Martin. Any comments or questions on the motion on the floor from the dais?
No.
Public comments or questions on the motion on the floor? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimous. Thank you, sir. We appreciate it. Look forward to seeing that project come to light. That takes us to item 12, which is resolution 2023-02. Mr. Attorney, would you please go ahead and read that by title into the record before?
Yes, sir. This is resolution of the city of Newberry, Florida, relating to the provision of fire rescue services, facilities, and programs in the city of Newberry, Florida, establishing the estimated assessment rate for fire rescue assessments for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2023, directing the preparation of an assessment roll, providing for hardship assistance, authorizing a public hearing, directing the provision of notice thereof, and providing an effective date. Appropriate motion is to pass resolution 2023-02 as read by title only.
Thank you, sir.
Sir.
Dallas, take it away.
Mr. Mayor, as you and the commission are aware, the Constitution authorizes special assessments for fire services, which are Florida court tested and are currently utilized by many local governments throughout Florida to fund fire services. Local governments may use these special assessments for fire service because the fire services provide a special benefit by protecting property. Special assessment for fire service can only be used to fund personnel costs, capital improvements, equipment, and other costs relating to responding to fire, non-medical emergencies, maintaining readiness to respond to fire, non-medical emergencies, through staffing, training, and maintaining facilities equipment. Per Florida state statutes, the commission must adopt an initial or proposed rate for the fire assessment for the truth and millage or trim notifications, which will be mailed to all property owners in August. The rate set tonight is the highest rate, cap, or ceiling that the commission can levy in the current year without re-noticing all property owners. Staff proposes an increase of $5 a dwelling unit to offset increased costs in the fire department in the FY 2024 budget. The proposed 2024 rates are as follows: $200 for residential, 17 cents per square foot commercial, 3 cents per square foot industrial warehouse, and 23 cents per square foot for institutional. In 2015, the City Commission adopted the maximum fire assessment rates of $225. Again, tonight you are setting the maximum amount that you can levy, and you can always reduce it at our final hearings in August.
Done. Questions from the board? No? Okay, if there are no questions, I'll entertain a motion to pass resolution 2023-02. And I will note Commissioner Mazon's absence, so. I have a motion from Commissioner Coleman. Second from Commissioner Martin. Any comments, questions, motion on the floor from the dais? I think there are two things that we should read. One, we can't reduce it, and two, our proposed budget is reducing the millage rate greater than the $5 increase here. So at the end of the day, we're paying $5 more on fire assessments, but we save money on our millage rate. So all of the citizens of Newberry will end up saving money, and we were putting forth a budget that has a millage reduction. I know that some of our neighbors in this county are looking at significant millage increases. So we've given direction to our staff to diversify our revenues. So we're trying to do a little bit here and a little bit there and a little less in other places. So in the big picture of things, our residents will see a reduction in overall rates, and you guys still have the ability to reduce it again later. Madam Clerk? Commissioner Coleman made the motion, Commissioner Martin made the second. Okay. Any more? Should we wait for Commissioner Maison to get back here, or give me a head nod that we're getting to move forward? Okay. So roll call vote, Commissioner Coleman? Aye. Commissioner Clark? Aye. Commissioner Farnsworth? No. Commissioner Martin? Aye. Motion passes 3-1 with Commissioner Farnsworth in dissent, Commissioner Maison out of the room. Thank you, gentlemen. That will take us to item 13 tonight. And since I'm not quite sure if we're going to have a lengthy conversation on this one again or not, but let me have, Scott, will you go ahead and read ordinance 2023-14 into the record, just in case we have a lengthy conversation and I lose track?
This is an ordinance of the City Commission of the City Commissioners of the City of Newberry, Florida, regarding impact fees, creating a new chapter 87 of the City of Newberry Code of Ordinances entitled Impact Fees, providing general definitions, providing rules of construction and general legislative findings, providing administrative provisions related to the imposition, collection, and use of impact fees, providing for exemptions, alternative impact fees, and developer contribution credits, providing for impact fee review hearings and notice requirements governing the adoption of the impact fees or increase of the impact fee rates, providing for the review of impact fees and for administrative costs, providing definitions and legislative findings related to the transportation of impact fees, providing for the imposition, collection, and use of transportation impact fees, providing definitions and legislative findings related to public building impact fees, providing for the imposition, collection, and use of public building impact fees, providing for notice of impact fee rates, providing severability, codification, liberal construction, and providing an effective date. Motion will be to pass ordinance number 2023-14 upon first reading by title.
Okay, and I just want to take note, because this was published as second reading. And we have moved it to first reading because between the distance between first and second reading, we haven't changed the formula, we haven't changed the type of impact fee, but we have gotten much more clarity on the percentages that we're going to increase and how that's going to work. But I think it's important for us to notice here because overwhelmingly the communication I've had with Newberry has been in support of this, right? Old residents, new residents, the list of requests from our residents for roads, for facilities, we've heard it here tonight, is a never ending. And this is a very, very clear-cut way to make sure that the people who are causing the impacts have some skin in the game for addressing them. So here on second reading, we have no one in the chamber here to protest this tonight, and I believe that that is because we have a community that is more frustrated with how long it has taken us to get here. And I think that's an important thing just to notice because generally impact fees are fairly controversial. I certainly have had some home developers that have reached out and not been in support of this. But that's the only people that I've heard that are not in support of this. Everyone else is asking us to do this, and the fact that no one is here tonight, I think, speaks volumes because they expect us to do this, they've heard about it, and I just think that's really important to note, right? So with that, Dallas, take us through this presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think my fourth time on this presentation with the commission. Recommended motion tonight is to pass ordinance 2023-14 upon first reading, and we'll schedule second reading at the next meeting, first meeting in August. As a reminder, impact fees meet 9 of the commission's strategic goals adopted in your strategic plan. Mostly those are aligned around infrastructure needs, diversification of revenue, providing safe and effective transportation and community planning. As a reminder, impact fees are a one-time capital charge to new development. Existing residents don't pay impact fees unless they were to build a new house. It covers the cost of the new capital facility capacity. So for every person who moves into the city, there is a cost to their impact on your infrastructure, and impact fees seek to close that gap. It implements your capital improvement element of your comprehensive plan, which you discussed earlier tonight, as well as your capital improvement plan. They protect your existing taxpayers from the development of the burden of new development because you don't have to raise your ad valorem or property taxes to fund those capacity increases which are being driven by new residents. Generally, impact fees are rolled into the mortgage of the homeowner or the business owner. At 100%, it was about $35 a month in their mortgage. Again, why do you need impact fees? Generally because you have a high growth and limited funding. And as the commission knows, your property taxes that you collect do not fund expansion of your assets, but only generally ongoing maintenance of those assets. This slide essentially says there's a lot of law, complicated law around impact fees, which I think we have tested very thoroughly this last year while trying to implement impact fees. Here's some more law about it. Since we last spoke, the impact fee ordinance has been codified with the commission's, what we believe is the commission's intent. So the current impact fee is a step-in plan starting at 60% of commercial and residential impact fees. It's a 60% impact fee through October of next year. It then increases 10% every year until October of 2027 when it finally reaches 100%. So it's a 5-year step-in plan. We've also created an economic development incentive program. We'll discuss that in the next item. But essentially, what it does is it allows for non-residential or commercial development to receive an incentive for every job that they create over a certain number of jobs with a certain number of capital investment to offset the impact fees on a commercial building. So for example, the current resolution says it's $3,500 per new job created. So a grocery store, according to the internet, has on average 32.2 FTEs. If you multiply that times the $3,500 credit, they would be eligible for $112,000 in credits against their impact fees.
And then for every manager or anyone who is paid at a higher than the average rate would be another $1,000 on top of that.
Correct. If the current resolution that was before the commission this evening, says if you have a job that pays 150% of the prevailing wage, you get another $1,000 credit on that job. It changes every year, but it's determined by the Department of Labor. But it's our local area's average wage. Yeah. So doing the same math with the coffee shop, again, according to the internet, startmycoffeeshop.com apparently. On average, a coffee shop has 5 FTEs. They qualify for $3,500 or $17,000 credit against their impact fees. So we'll discuss the resolution more in the next item. I know the city attorney's office has a few questions looking for clarity, but that's the general program that's been developed. It's based off of programs throughout the state of Florida. It's also based off the state of Florida itself's economic development program. So as a reminder, the commission directed staff to develop 2 impact fees. The first one was for public buildings. There's a variety of categories for public building impact fees. A couple of them are shown here. The box in red shows you the 100% impact fee that would start being assessed after October of 2027. And then the far right is the 60% fee. These are your revenue projections. As you can see, it ratchets up over the first several years as that 10% increases every year and then tapers down again according to development. Based off of these revenue projections, we would still be able to meet your capital improvement plan and the projects that have been identified to be funded with impact fees should they pass.
Dallas, I know before we get into that, if we pass the, we got the road and then we got the building. We do this, you do the building, none of it can ever go to the road if you need it?
Yes, sir.
We're kind of locking ourselves into like the county. You make a law, you make a tax, and then you need it, you can't spend it except for.
It's similar to your fire assessment where you can only ever spend it on fire.
But remember, I see that as a benefit, right? Because when you talk about impact fees, it's very, very clear who's paying them and what that money goes to, as opposed to millage rates, right?
No, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
you couldn't borrow if we needed to do.
No.
You could borrow it if you're going to pay it back, but you can't.
Borrow against it?
generally.
No. You're talking about borrowing internally.
Yeah. You
Not
can't take it.
borrowing, not taking debt and saying, I'm gonna use that to pay that.
Right, yeah, I mean, you could borrow against yourself and pay it back, but we all know the cost of roads. The public buildings is not generating enough to do too many roads. You could use it if, for example, we were building a new public building and that public building required, upgrades to a road, just like if we required a developer to upgrade a road. If we were building a new building that required upgrades to a road, you could use the public buildings impact fee for that. Parking lots. Mhm. You can also use the public buildings to fund equipment for new buildings. The best example is a fire station. If we were to build a new fire station, you could use the public buildings impact fee to buy the new fire truck to go into that new fire station.
And there are other impact fees out there for different categories. The commission voted unanimously 5-0 to send out our staff to go study 4, and then we wanted to proceed with 2. Is that right? We got presented 4, we just said the 2, roads and public buildings. So 5-0, we did that 2 times, right, to go study these 2. But there's one for parks and.
You can do them for almost anything.
Yeah. There were 4 big broad
We
categories.
originally, I think, looked at roads, public buildings, parks, and fire. And because you can use public buildings for parks and fire, the commission decided to do just public buildings because it allows you to still fund those other 2 areas.
Commissioner Coleman?
Mayor, let's say 3 years down the road, this is affecting people wanting to come to Newberry, okay? What is involved for us? What's the exit plan out of this, if it's a bad thing? I don't, nowhere do I see this being bad.
Right.
But I wanna know what.
I think that there's a little bit, I'll take a first whack at it. I mean, we can get out of the ordinance anytime we want, but if we've taken out debt, we have to finish the service of that debt first before you can just stop, right? So I would say that the first thing you'd have to do is signal to staff, we're not gonna re-up this, but let's finish paying off the debt, right? And then once those projects are done, then you have the ability to say, okay, no more.
Mr. Mayor, I believe you're correct. We did see a lot of communities in the 2008 put suspension on collection of their impact fees to help offset the burden. The law is pretty open. If you ever want to stop, reduce impact fees, you can basically do it at a drop of a hat. If you wanted to end your impact fee program, you could repeal the ordinance, 2 readings of an ordinance. You could also adopt a resolution to put a moratorium on collections. So the law gives you a lot of outs. It doesn't give you a lot of ability to increase impact fees. That's where the restrictions come in.
If you bonded money, then we have got to take care of that debt.
If you have, well, two things. A, we would never recommend that you bond your impact fees. Your creditors do not like impact fees as pledges against debt, so we would bond something else and use impact fees to pay it. We would also I would never recommend to the commission to bond 100% of your impact fees, because you want to give yourself that leeway that if there is something, you're still collecting enough.
We still got to pay for it somehow once we get out there.
This is correct.
And I think as part of my learning curve for this process, what you see is a lot of counties, cities pass them, but they just never, because you've got to pay for a new study. So if we have this rate for 20 years, this rate is going to be, I mean, even by the time we're at 100%, those rates are not, I mean, $1,000 6 years from now is not going to be $1,000 today, right? So if 20 years from now, if you want to increase it beyond the rate, you've got to pay for a study to be done to, so what I see, because when we were comparing all those places, they're like, man, that's not a lot. Yeah, but they passed it back in 1995, right? And they just never have paid for the study to up it, right? They're not keeping pace with inflation. So I don't, I'm not aware of any city that has implemented impact fees and then non-implemented them, because if you implement them, it's because you see that people are moving to your community and you need a revenue source to cover their impact, right? But I do see a lot of places that just never go back to the study to increase it. They just leave it wherever it is and they manage with it. Okay, continue.
So as a reminder, on the public building side, you can use the public buildings impact fee for new general government buildings, fire stations, additions to existing buildings, land purchase for future buildings or additions, and then new equipment and vehicles needed to have those buildings function. The other side of the impact fees, the other impact fee the commission directed staff to look at was multimodal transportation. So again, here's the chart that shows you the 100% of the multimodal transportation, and then the 60% that would be effective upon adoption, well, upon 90 days after adoption. Here are your revenue projections. Again, this is based off of development we foresee coming to the city, as well as the 10% increase per year. So for the first couple years, gaining 600,000-ish. But by year 2026 and on, you're generating enough revenue to really make some impacts, no pun intended, to your transportation network.
Where's the other one? Dallas, is there one more that goes with this? Am I missing something?
There's,
Yeah, transportation. Is there another one for building or no?
public building should be before this one. We just did it.
Yeah, it was a few slides back.
Where's the,
There.
no, like this number? That's the one I need to find.
Should be page 10.
Do that? Okay. Thank you. That's all I need.
So to give the commission an example of the different impact fees on different categories of building, as well as a comparison to the county. In the residential, it's broken up into 3 categories: houses less than 1,500 square feet, houses between 1,500 and 2,500 square feet, and those above 2,500 square feet. At the 60% that the commission directed us to draft the ordinance at, a 1,500 square foot house, total impact fee, including public buildings and multimodal transportation, would be about $3,600. That same house in the county would have an impact fee of about $5,700 based off of the last impact fee rates the county presented. The current impact fee in the county would be about $4,400. So for the first year, 2 years, we would be below in that category. We continue to be below in the other 2 categories, significantly so. As you can see on the mid-range house, we're about half of what the new impact fees in the county would be. Newberry's total impact fees would be just under $4,200. The county's proposed would be just shy of $8,800. On the larger homes over 2,500 square feet, our impact fee at 60% would be $4,700, whereas currently the county's $8,700, and the proposed increase could be up to $11,000 on the county side.
Okay, I really like, we had a whole lot of numbers being thrown out at one point in time, and people were saying, no, it's gonna be more, it's gonna be less.
Right.
So this is very helpful to know we are still underneath our nearest competitor, which is Jonesville. And, so thank you for this, I appreciate it.
And it's not public building, it's commercial building.
No, public buildings is the type of impact fee.
Right.
The,
If you're, public buildings, it just means, it's the category of impact fee, so it's
Help me.
fire departments,
This is the residential.
city halls,
This is the one that can go to fire departments.
Okay,
yeah.
I got it.
Commissioner Clark, you got a
I
question?
was just gonna say that, so what we do have here, like, when you say total for Newberry right now on a 2,500 square foot home is $4,700, that's at 60%.
Correct.
Correct.
But you're saying the current 100% in the county currently is 87?
Correct.
Yes. If you were to build a house in the county today, you'd
At
pay
100 for
87.
them.
You'd pay
And they're
8,700.
going to 11?
Correct.
We don't know.
That's what
Their
they're
study came back at 11,000. They haven't adopted, but they're not, I can't foresee them going below what they're currently collecting.
No, they're not gonna do that, but I'm just gonna be, but our total on that home, if we were at 100, to be equal at 100% with them would be,
7.
Give me one
Get my
second.
little math thing out here. I'm not a joint accountant. I'm just kidding.
That's good.
It would be $6,000. I'm sorry, on a 2,500 square foot house would be $7,800.
So really, we're 1,000 below them if they didn't change nothing.
And
In
it'll-
5 years.
It'll take us 5 years to get
5
there.
years to get there.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
According to the math I have here, that Amanda so nicely did for me, it's 143% difference.
I mean, the, cost of a 2,500 square foot home now is like, what, $500,000 anyhow. So $4,700 really not that much of a,
Well, and the cost difference to build between Jonesville and Newberry is already significantly different, right?
Yeah.
So we're somewhere between 15 and 20% less to build here in Newberry than you are to build in Jonesville. And so we'll continue that differentiation. We'll continue to save you money if you come to Newberry.
So, not throwing a wrench in here, but we can't, we bring the commercial in, right?
That's coming next, right?
Right. But we won't be able to suspend it like we thought last meeting, right? Like, we would go in and say,
Let's get through this one.
We
Okay.
we can't
Okay.
suspend, but the economic development resolution that follows this one, which we'll get into,
Which is what we're trying to get.
right, will waive significant amounts. And you've
Okay.
already got some, waiving 117, 3,500.
I got you.
versus- Yeah,
We thought we
Alright.
could suspend it.
yeah, we can't do that.
okay, moving on. There you go.
So moving on to non-residential or commercial, a grocery store at 50,000 square feet. In Newberry, at 60%, would be a $404,000 impact fee. However, based off my research, it was 32 FTEs. Our planning and economic development director tells me my research is woefully wrong. It's way more FTEs than that.
I thought it was really low too myself, but. what do I know?
Blame Google.
I'm not a grocer,
Yeah, I'm the accountant, I'm not the ED guy. Assuming 32, and the credit, it's a $112,000 credit, so that would come off the $404,000 of impact fees. The other credits would also apply if they were required to make off-site development, off-site improvements, they would receive those credits as well. So the Newberry impact fee is about $400,000. If they were to build that same grocery store in the county, it'd be about $1.5 million. Wow. The current county impact fee is just shy of $700,000 for a grocery store. And if we were to move ours to 100%, not including any of the credits, ours would be $675,000. So still below the county's current impact fees for a grocery store.
They looking up this one too?
Yep, so the current is 688,
Oh, the new,
and the new would be 1.5.
And I want to, Dallas just said it, but I want to make sure we're all hearing it, right? So you get the credits for the FTE creation, that's going to be, staff can handle that at staff level, right? But that doesn't take into account also those credits that you could get for the off-site development. So say a grocery store had to put in a stoplight, and that stoplight was $300,000 or $400,000. Well, they would get a credit for that amount, right? That would, in this scenario, be roughly equivalent to what they would have been paying anyway. And the credit that's where it gets to be project dependent, right? So there's no way to say every commercial entity is gonna get X amount of credits because each project is gonna be specific to itself. And some may have lots of credits, some may have none, right? So we can't really hypothetically project that into the future, but we can with the FTEs, right? The FTEs are pretty straightforward. We know roughly how many jobs you're gonna create. We can give you credit for that. So again, just looking at that comparison, the numbers that we can waive, that will be in the economic development resolution that's after this, but it doesn't take into account the credits, right? So for anybody out there watching about the commercial tonight, there's a pretty big factor here that we can't anticipate right now, which will also bring that down. Because I know the main concern of the commission is we don't want to kill the commercial growth that is just now beginning to blossom, right? We've been working on it for years, just about to take off. We don't want to kill that. And I think even without the credits and the waiver, we're still way cheaper than our neighbor to the east, right? But we're going to still beat that and incentivize more folks to come because we're going to be able to significantly reduce those fees.
And this was developed because when we go into commercial, Mr. Mayor, and we got our transportation for our roads and all, but when we hit the commercial side, we cannot, by law, go zero on commercial as we wanted and keep the transportation in the public building.
Correct.
So that's why we're gonna make this economic incentive
Right.
to be able to back these out
Correct.
until it gets bigger and bigger.
Yeah, and I think that discourse like this has given us a better end product,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
Because now we will be able to work with each individual applicant to find out what their impact is, how many jobs they're creating, right? What off-site improvements they're gonna have to make. And I think that this allows us, because there will come a point in Newberry when we have just as much commercial going. I mean, if you're at the state of the city, you know that for every 5 houses we build, we bring one new business into town. So, but a lot of those businesses aren't visible to our residents. But that will come a time when that changes, right? And then you guys may want to ease off of this and say, no, it's time to start collecting this money.
That's exactly where we're gonna go with that, Mr. Mayor. We talked about doing a zero impact fee on commercial was the big argument. We couldn't do that by law. So now that we've created this, in 3 to 5 years, if all this thing picks up and just steams ahead and everybody's booming, we can even back off of this.
Correct.
As a new, and
Correct.
then just say, we're done with it, it's all.
Whatever it is is what it is.
Whatever it is, and that's
Correct.
because we just didn't wanna kill the growth coming in right now for the next 0 to 5 years. We don't know.
For the foreseeable future. And that's, I think on the residential side, that's been, and this is kind of y'all's philosophy on everything. We got an idea, let's step into it, let's see how the market reacts, give ourselves a way to back out if we need to. We're gonna go slow, give the market a chance to react to it as well. So I think this adheres to other things that you guys have done in the past. We don't jump into the deep end all the way, we put a toe in first. I think it's important. Let's finish up some of these examples just so you guys have. We got to the grocery store, and Dallas is probably gonna make this point, but we're comparing ourselves to Alachua County, but in some ways that's a really hard comparison because Alachua County gets to charge so many different taxes and fees, and all of those are put into the equation with the consultant who spits back out what you can charge, right? And we're gonna see some of those differences, I think, in some of these coming up. So, go ahead, Dallas. We're at Jerry's Restaurant.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mary. Jerry's Restaurant, which is a 2,500 square foot sit-down restaurant. In Newberry, we would charge an impact fee of about $43,000. With a 12 FTE credit, they could get $42,000 of those impact fees credited back. In Alachua County, as of today, that same restaurant would pay about $25,000 in impact fees. The proposed Alachua County numbers, the high numbers that they received was 40,000. So that's where the mayor was speaking that we are a little bit higher there. Again, it has to do with how the study was done on each side, but also the county does get additional revenues that they have to credit towards their impact fees that we do not receive. A good example of that is they get additional pennies of the gas tax that we do not receive.
Uh-huh.
So when we're going on these FTEs, I just don't wanna get into here where we get this thing done, they call us every day, cause now we're gonna give this credit. What if they got 24 half-timers?
They'd have 12 FTEs.
That only equals 12, so.
Right, 2 half-timers is
That's a
one.
good common sense approach, I think.
We
Yeah, but what if you got 24 half-timers?
full-time equivalents.
By law, by-
Full-time equivalents. So we've based, the next item is the resolution. We've based a lot of the resolution off of the state of Florida's economic development program that is done by the state of Florida. So a lot of those rules and questions have been kind of riddled out by the state. Moving into the pharmacy and the coffee shop, there is a caveat here that the planning director has pointed out to me because he's the director of No Fun. The way the resolution is currently written, based off of the state's program, is you have to have at least 10 FTEs to qualify for the credit program. That'll be a great conversation for the commission to have with the city attorney on whether or not that can be a lower number. Currently, the resolution is written at 10 FTEs.
The other reason is having to accept.
Brian, you gotta come up to the microphone, Brian, if you're gonna give us
This where the other consideration is how small of an endeavor you want to be giving these reductions to, and how much staff time you want to have spending on every small little application that comes in. And so setting the capital investment at a minimum of $1 million and the FTEs at 10, we thought was a reasonable level to set those at.
Let's
so
get
that you
into
didn't
that
get
when
every
we
single
get into the red. I don't want
commercial.
to muddy the waters here. It's a good point, but let's wait and hold on to that thought till we get to the resolution.
So I'll skip the FTEs for these last two, but for the pharmacy, and I did want to clarify, this is a 1,500 square foot pharmacy. This isn't CVS. CVS would obviously have a much bigger impact. But a small local pharmacy, about 1,500 square feet, would pay just under $8,000. In the county, that's currently $22,000. This is one of the rare instances where the county is lowering the impact fees on small pharmacies. But there's still going to be about $14,000, about double what ours is.
So on ours, we give about $2,500 to help build.
So should the commission adopt zero FTEs, you can't get more credits than you pay.
Down, I'm just asking.
I was just making sure you guys were looking. And then in a small coffee shop, about 750 square feet, our impact fee would be about $30,000. Where in the county, it's currently $26,000, and in the new proposed county rates, it's $28,000. So again, right in line, a little bit higher on our end.
That part I don't understand, because it's a different classification.
It's a coffee shop generates a lot more trips on the road. They have a lot higher turnover than a pharmacy or a sit-down. Yep, it's based off the
Everything
impact
on
the road.
impact is based on what your impact is. So if it's
But off of a study.
right. Well, and also of common sense, right? I mean, if I'm building a bowling alley that's got 20 lanes,
Yeah.
I'm gonna have higher impact than a bowling alley that's got 4, right? If I build a movie theater that's got 20 theaters, that's gonna have a higher impact than if I build a theater that's got 1. If I build a hotel with 2,000 rooms, that's a different impact than a hotel with 100. All right?
So, Mr. Mayor and City Commission, the next step would be for adoption of the ordinance upon the first reading. And then, provided there are no changes, would bring this back at your first meeting in August. And then, if adopted, there's a 90-day cooling down period. So, should it be adopted at the August 14th meeting, we would start collecting impact fees 90 days thereafter, which would be middle of November.
There won't be none of the grandfathered in stuff, none of that.
By the time, I mean,
Whoever's in the system is already in, but after that,
So you can go two ways. The thought was, we've already given them a year grace period,
no, I don't.
and we've lowered it to 60%. So the current ordinance does not have that grandfather. It's got the language in there, should you want to do it,
and
but
you
it
got
is not in
another
the
90
proposal.
days after second reading, so there's 3 months, another 3 months there. So everybody's had plenty of time to adjust their models.
I was just saying, if we're gonna go, we're gonna go.
So the recommended motion from staff this evening is to pass ordinance 2023-14 upon first reading. I'm happy to answer any
And
questions.
this is the impact fee, where it's not the economic development. We'll dive into that one before. But this one's 60, 10, 10, 10, 10. We had a developer come and ask us to consider going to 40. I think we are at 70. So we've come down, we've compromised, we're stepping in. We've got the resolution that's gonna help out on the commercial side even more. After this, we have hard numbers now. We're beating Alachua County in just about every category, and we'll beat them big once we have the economic incentive program as well. So, any questions? Commissioner Farnsworth.
Move to approve.
Okay, I got a motion from Commissioner Farnsworth to approve. We've already read this ordinance into the record.
Yes.
Yep. Do I have a second? Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
I got a second from Commissioner Mazon. Okay, so I have a motion on the floor for approval, seconded. Any comments, questions on the motion on the floor of the dais? Public comments, question on the motion on the floor. Okay, hearing none, roll call vote. Commissioner Coleman? Aye. Commissioner Clark? Aye. Commissioner Farnsworth? Aye. Commissioner Martin? No. Commissioner Mazon? Aye. Motion passes 4-1 with Commissioner Martin in dissent. Okay, now we'll move to the Economic Fee Development Incentive Program. This one we should be back to being unanimous on, right? Who's taking it? Brian, you taking us through? Scott, you're taking us through?
Happy to do so. Mr. Mayor, this is for your consideration. This is a resolution, so it only requires.
Hang on one second. Our commission's having a little fun with each other. Okay, all right. Now we're moving on to the next one. There we go.
Mr. Mayor, this is a resolution, so the intent is for it to be under consideration tonight. We won't pass it until we get it all worked out. We wanted to get some information back from you, the commission, as to how you want to implement this and what your requirements were. The impact fee won't go into effect until November, so we have plenty of time to look at this and create it. And again, it'll only require one reading, so it'll be fairly easy to implement. I think there's already been plenty of discussion this evening about what this does. Eligibility, as Brian said just a few moments ago, is 10 net new jobs for a period of, and how many years do you want to have the job creation? That would be question number one.
Okay, let's go point by point here.
So somebody that is building $1 million worth of commercial infrastructure into your city and creating at least a net of 10 jobs for a period of X years, that's the question.
See, and I kind of take the different tact on that, because in my mind, this is for the little guy, not the big guy. The big guy, Publix comes in, they'll pay $1.5 million to build in Jonesville, you know, saving them $100,000. But for the little guy that's starting out, saving $30,000 is a big deal, right? And I'm always sensitive to staff saying, well, how much work do you want? But if this is an FTE, we sit down, we're talking about site plans, we're talking about everything else, permits, processes, how many jobs you're gonna create. Well, I create 3. I think you should get credit for that, right? I don't see that as a tremendous amount more work. And generally, I think the criticism for most economic development incentives is that they get written so that only the big box stores can take advantage of them. They don't really help the little guy trying to start out. But that's my 2 cents. So I think it should be any new commercial development that comes in. Somebody wants to build a dentist office, and it's a dentist and a tech. That's 2 jobs, but they're bringing an industry that Newberry needs. They're building an office. I think they should qualify.
I'll agree.
Head nod. Go ahead, Commissioner Clark.
So, is this to vote on this just to get it on the books?
We're giving them
and then we
direction.
discuss this?
Yeah, we're giving them direction about what they're gonna come back
Is that-
actually written in.
Okay,
That's right. That's
okay.
exactly.
Long we ain't locked into something that this.
They're not
No,
like,
no,
right
no.
now.
They'll write it
But
out.
I'm agreeing. I mean, we're developing this to bring people and businesses. And it does, $1 million sounds like a lot of money anymore, but really it ain't when you're building a building.
No.
It really
You get
ain't.
there
$1
pretty
million
quick.
goes just like
But if
that.
I'm building
So,
a $700,000 building,
but I'm bringing 5 employees. I mean,
Right.
I mean, I wouldn't be wanting to be limited. And honestly, to me, it's gonna take more staff time to track all this little stuff. The question is he building a building? Are they hiring full-time employees and rolling? If not, staff's got to go back in 3 years. Oh, did y'all still own 3 of them or 10 of them? I think that's more staff time. We don't need to put that burden on them. Give them the development fee and let them roll. If they close it down, somebody will pick it back up and go again.
Dallas, you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to say for the commission's benefit, this is a resolution, which gives us, the commission, the ability to change very quickly if it's not working or it's working too well. Resolutions take 1 reading, so the city attorney's office and staff can rewrite it and bring you back a new resolution whenever you want. So your hands aren't tied as much as they may be in some other
I
areas.
don't want to tie your hands.
I got it. I got 3 heads, and Tim, you can start nodding on this one, because now we're waiving the stuff you didn't want anyway.
Yeah.
So,
Well, it's all this if but for type statement stuff that really encourages me not to even bother with the impact fees to begin with, because my hang up with them has been that it doesn't, to me, I understand the 100,000 foot principle of the impact fees. But when you get down into the lower level, when you start doing if they got this, but they don't have that, and they got this, but they got, and then we're tracking, and I mean, you're trying to beef up commercial, but if you're killing the home opportunities, the commercial isn't coming here unless the homes are here. So that seesaw effect happens to where it kind of renders the whole point kind of moot in my opinion. Am I in favor of giving them as much credit? I guess I probably would be, because I want to I want it to be zero, really, at this point. I mean, you just look at the argument about, well, the new people need to pay for the improvements. Well, yeah, they pay for the improvement, but everybody gets the benefit afterwards. So the new guy pays for it, but the existing guy gets the benefit, but they don't have any skin in the game in it. And that's kind of the weeded points and issues that don't make me in favor of these, because I just don't know that they pan out, over time. And that's really my thing here.
okay.
I know you just want to get to the point of
No, I'm just
whether I'm in favor of it or not. I get
the
that.
economic development.
I understand that.
All
I understand that. I would be in favor of some of the incentive, because I'd be in favor of it going to zero.
Okay. So we got a head nod on that point.
Yeah.
All right, next point, Scott?
So the commission as a whole is stating any new jobs that are created, not
New commercial, new jobs. You're in the run-in to participate.
Do you still have to have the minimum capital investment?
No. Any new development, any new growth that brings new jobs, you're in the running. So that's if I build a 700, my new construction is 700,000 and I'm bringing 3 jobs, then I get to participate. Is that the only point?
Mr. Mayor, does that apply to somebody who retros a building, an existing building as well?
No, impact fees, and I'll let you answer it so we stay on point, right?
So
Depends on how much I retro. Right?
yeah, if you don't change the use, you don't have to pay the impact fee. If you change the use, you'd have to pay the impact fee if you're expanding the business. If you're just renovating a business, you don't have to pay the impact fee. But if you're expanding your business, doing new capital improvement, there's an impact fee for that new portion.
Okay, I mean, it would seem, if you want some of the businesses downtown to get revitalized, I mean, it costs a fortune to update some of these old buildings, but they wouldn't get any sort of a credit if.
The credit
say
applies
King
the same way.
Cabinets.
So if you have to pay the impact fee because you're expanding, you're eligible for the credit because you're expanding.
Okay.
But they would pay.
But if you
So
renovate, you don't pay an impact fee.
if Keen Cabinets decides they're gonna close the door and somebody else wants to come in there and change it into, I don't know, a gaming fun zone, something or other, but they don't change the footprint or anything, but they sink $1.5 million into it, they don't get anything?
No impact fee.
Yeah, my understanding would be there's no impact fee.
But they get the incentives.
No, they don't get the incentives because they're not
You
paying impact
only get
fees.
the incentive if you pay the impact fee. Yeah.
But that's trying
You
to
don't-
keep it at zero.
The building is already there, the impact already happened, right?
Sure.
'Cause that's the whole
And-
point. I mean, that's where the old residents, that's where I disagree with Commissioner Martin. The old residents already have their skin in the game. They've been paying for all of those things for all of these years. Their skin's been in the game. It's the new people that don't have any skin in the game. This is what's evening out the skin in the game, right? Monty's been here since 1812.
Yeah.
He's got more skin in the game than anybody else, right?
1814.
All right.
Just-
Nick, Mike?
Just to offer a point of clarity on that issue is that if someone is redeveloping in our downtown district and they're making a significant investment in our downtown, even though they're not paying an impact fee and therefore might not be eligible for an economic development credit on the impact fee. I can't imagine that this commission wouldn't be open to a conversation with them about some sort of credit on whatever impacts they were having with the city. If the city wants to incentivize any business walking in, that business can approach staff or the commission and say, I'm prepared to do all this, and I need the commission to waive a fee here, give me some credit there. We're open to that with any proposed business that comes to town, whether it's an established economic development incentive program or whether we have to get creative after that first conversation.
And you still have your economic incentive program that you fund.
Correct.
You have that, and you also have the
I mean, I
ad
think-
valorem tax incentive program that was voted on by the voters.
But I mean, this is the central confusion. If the building is already there, you're not creating new impact, right? So this is to people who are building new structures, new impacts, right? So building's already there, there is no impact.
Well, what if you turn it into a coffee shop that creates all these extra traffic trips?
There's a, I don't have the ordinance in front of me, there's a threshold where if you go from like 1 visitor a day to 2,000 visitors a day, it triggers an impact fee.
But it wouldn't on our end until someone says, hey, right? So if Joel's comes and says, I'm gonna turn this into a coffee shop, and it was a law office, but it's an existing structure, we wouldn't say, well, we think you're gonna generate more than 2,000 trips a day, so we're gonna collect it up front. We'd say, well, let's see how you do, right? And that's also part of, and I think it's a point that Scott wants to get to at some point about how long do you want the audit to last, right? How long, if you give them, but then they don't do it, how many years, right?
And there's no situation where you have to pay an impact fee, but don't also have the ability to qualify for the credit.
Agree.
Right. Commissioner Farnsworth?
First of all, it's kind of funny that you mentioned that Keene had become a gaming room of some sort. When I was like 3 years old, it was a pool hall at that time, so I thought they did. And very good ones, too.
Mammoth
I don't
bones.
remember, I mean, I just remember going in there like one time and seeing it, so. But if I were to, I don't know, have a hot dog stand and I said, hey, you know, I'm gonna have 10 employees. Okay, we'll give you these credits. And then I end up only having 3 employees. Is that,
That's the
What-
next
what
point that
happens?
Scott's gonna get to. So, yeah, so, I mean, the way, and Scott can either introduce it or I'll keep dancing around it, but we gotta figure out, you know, because this is gonna happen, someone's gonna come in and say to Brian, yeah, I'm opening up a coffee shop and, you know, I'm gonna have 10 employees. We've gotta figure out how long do they get to that 10 employees? How long do they have to keep them? How long are we gonna keep checking? And I think staff's recommendation is 3 years. Is that based off of, I mean, with Champions Park, I think it was 7 that we had to watch how many employees they had. So in my mind, 3 is good. I think that most businesses, if they're gonna go out of business, they go out within the first year or 2. By 3, they're pretty well established, and they probably pretty well established what their employee rate is gonna be. So 3 years kind of makes sense to me, but.
Yes, sir. You could set it up to where you take your first snapshot at year 1. If they're compliant, you're done. If they're not compliant, you give it another year, take a snapshot at year 2, you know, and give them to, like you say, 3 years to get fully into compliance with whatever the agreement says.
Yeah. Thoughts? 3, all right, head nods for 3. Yeah.
If they're in compliant after the first year, it's done and over with, you let them move forward?
No, they're not compliant the first year.
If they are, they come in and say 10, you got 10 on the first year, you're shaking yes?
That'd be up to the commission.
So you guys could, if you're compliant in the first year, you could be done. If you're not compliant in the
Then
first
you
year,
got 3 years to get there.
2 more years.
Right.
How do people
But I'm
feel
with
about
Brian, what he's saying is if you come in and do what you say, in the first year you got 10 or 20, then it's over with. We ain't looking at you, you're done. But if you ain't there, you kind of get a chance to get there for a 3-year program.
So if they comply in the first year, we're done with it. Good job, moving on. If you're not, you get 2 more years to get up to whatever you said. Do I have a head nod for that?
I mean, that's a lot of work.
So but to Commissioner Farnsworth's point, what if after that first year they go down to 3? Do we care or do we not care?
I mean, part of what I think is, we've already got a commercial building at that point, right? Something else is gonna go in there, and that's what we want, that commercial space, we want the vibrancy. So I don't know how much we wanna to micromanage it. I guess I do share the concern, a lot of people come in and they overhire, right? So that first couple months, they've got 20 employees, and then they realize, well, that was a mistake. And they scale all the way back down to 3 or 4. But it would be an average of employment over the course of the year, not, you know, oh, you had 20 employees for a month, and then the rest of the year you had 3.
It's true.
They just have to, I think they just have to submit a payroll, right? They submit a copy of their payroll, these are the people that I pay.
Mr. Mayor, I would just offer, it is kind of a challenge, but, you know, when we get grants with the state of Florida for employers, for jobs that are being proposed, when we're going through those audit processes, and we've been challenged, we did one at Champions, and we had a hard time producing the jobs. And we also did one for Newberry Town Center, and we had a hard time producing the jobs. And I would take my cue from the state staff, who did everything they could to help us reach that threshold. And I really appreciated that. And that's actually the mentality that our staff has every day, is our job is to help the applicant, whether they're getting a building permit or they're applying for any planning actions, is to help them get across the finish line. So, and there is always the temptation to nail people. That's just inherent in our personalities, and we just will resist it. And we will work on every day helping people to achieve compliance. That's our mission. And when we do these audits, and they will be time consuming and challenging, but we will always be open-eyed to how do we help them achieve compliance so that we can move on to the next project, and not how do we find somebody owes us 50 cents more because they produced a quarter of a job less than we anticipated that they should have.
I just want to say, Mr. Mayor, too, the volume of commercial activity right now is such, it's not really going to be a burden. If 5 years from now we've got so much commercial activity we don't know what to do with, well, then we'll hire another staff person to do it, track it, because we'll have so much volume, and we'll be bringing in that much. Or do away with it. Or do away with it. Or do away with it. Right.
Okay, I just, go ahead.
Commissioner Martin?
And just so I can answer any question I get from the public, is this credited up front, or do they get a rebate?
Upfront.
Upfront?
So we don't collect it.
It's a credit, not a rebate? Okay.
If I'm understanding it correctly, no capital investment is necessary. You're not measuring the capital investment to receive benefit of the program. It's
Just
job
FTEs.
creation.
Correct. And Dallas, we had talked about this before, about whether there would be a square footage incentive, and if you're building X amounts, could we calculate that? And there's the state standard is FTEs, not square footage. Because in my mind, if you're building 1 million square foot of commercial, that should be a factor as well. But I guess you could have just a warehouse that's 1 million square feet, but there's only 2 jobs in there, right? And so it's not really being an economic driver. But that's to Scott's question. There is no capital investment. There was a question about a base capital investment, but everything now is just based off of FTEs.
That's correct, Mr. Mayor. After our conversation this afternoon, I did do some research. I found one city that does it on square footage, but they also have an FTE component. The state wants to drive job creation, so all of their economic development incentive programs are geared towards job creation. It's been tested, it's been tried, so that's where we would like to follow in that same footstep, because it's defensible.
Okay. Commissioner Martin?
I mean, I think the FTEs is the way to go because I think there's too much variation in square footage, value of square footage, and what they're actually building. So, yeah, FTEs solely is really where I would think we should go.
All right. Okay, other points, Scott?
The next point is with regard to what is the administrative fee we're going to charge for this. I think this is more of a staff issue than bring back a number to the commission. Recommended
Do we,
application fee.
do we charge anything for the economic incentive program to apply for that?
I think it would be, review the application, figuring out what the,
No, I mean, for the other economic incentive program that we don't have an application fee for there. I mean, to me, I know we've talked a lot about staff time here, but this seems like a very organic component of the conversations we're already having, right? Somebody comes in, they say, I want to build a coffee shop. What are the steps? We say, well, you know, where you're doing is not zoned. You got to change the zoning. You got to change the future land use. We also have this. Do you want to partake in it, right?
Mr. Mayor?
Commissioner?
Out of the gate, it strikes me as something that should just be a cost of doing business for us. Because I don't know that we get to those answers without having a lot of other stuff anyway.
Mr. Mayor, my thought would be, you're not gonna be able to charge a fee that is high enough to really recoup any of your costs. And it's just another thing for staff to have to track of, well, did they pay the fee? So for the amount of work, you're not gonna charge a fee that's gonna really benefit the city, so I'm fine with no fee.
Okay, next point.
eligibility requirements, that goes hand in hand with what we've already talked about. So I think that is the 3-year provision. Lien on capital facilities impact construction in the amount of the economic development impact fee for a period of X years. So if they don't meet the requirements, they've gotten the credit, how long will the lien last as to the mitigation? 7
Okay,
years?
so they don't hit their mark, we've waived $20,000. How do we go about, do you want to put a lien on their property?
No.
Just, right, cost of doing business, you didn't make it?
I'm sitting right here, Mike would, I mean, I'm not a lean guy. I mean, that's, I don't know, I'd like to hear some comments, I just thought.
I think that there has to be a disincentive to just out and out line.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I think that we should put something in there with a clawback that is, will incentivize people to be honest, because that's what we're gonna do, is we're gonna be honest, and I've already told you that we're gonna interpret everything with the objective of getting these people to where they wanna be. So, that being said, I think.
You're saying like they come in with 10, they really hire 3?
Yes.
They got all that money?
They got all that money.
And I had to pay my full impact fee, but he said he was gonna have 10, and I got a
Yeah,
big
he got
credit.
over.
Mr. Mayor, and just like in all of the instances where we lien property, which are very few, it is the measure of last resort. You know, the first thing would be to have a conversation with them to see if they can get there, like the manager said, or to see if they can pay back the prorated cost of it. But if we just can't get there, it would, you know, it's always our
And we
our last resort.
can create situations to make payments, right, those kind of things.
We'll do like I said, we'll do everything to work with the entity, but if you just can't get there, I mean, we do have a duty to the rest of the residents.
Well, and I don't see, if someone comes and sits down with Brian and says, look, I'm opening a coffee shop and I'm gonna have 30 employees.
He knows they're lying out the gate.
Right? So, I mean, there's gonna be something at the beginning here. I think we're gonna be in the realm, right? No one's gonna come in and say, yep, I'm opening a grocery store and I'm hiring 1,000 people and I'm not paying a thing, right? So we're gonna say, well, wait a minute, you know, the average is,
You know they're lying right out the gate.
I agree with Mike that we don't wanna have a we don't want to incentivize the lie, but I don't, and I don't think staff would want to do this either. We're not gonna go through a big, long process over $10,000, right? You got 3 extra people than you said you would be, you missed it, let's work with you to, recoup what we can. But if you don't have that language in there, you don't even have it possible.
What gives it the teeth?
Right, and the lien gives it the teeth.
I think, Mr. Mayor, as the lien portion was envisioned, the lien is automatic. And then once they reach compliance, the lien is dismissed. Similar to when you use the SHIP program in residential, you get that money, it's a silent, basically a silent lien.
Right.
And then if you comply throughout the years with it, then it goes away. So the lien would be automatic on everyone that's granted, but then as soon as they reach compliance, the lien's waived.
Commissioner Farnsworth?
What would happen if they say, oh, I'm gonna hire 5 people, I have five FTEs, and they get started and, oh, business is crazy, so they end up hiring 10 FTEs? Are they gonna come back to the city and say, hey, you know what, I actually did more than I thought I was gonna be able to do within that 3-year period, can I get, more credit?
And
So we could go back and refund their impact fee.
What if they were already at 30,000, we give them 20? You ain't gonna give them the money back.
Well, Mr. Mayor, what I would say is that every time we do this, we end up with impact fees, especially those that end up with refunds or rebates. There is an agreement that goes along with that documents all this, and that agreement is approved by the city commission. And neither me, Dallas, nor Brian, or Jamie for that matter, can amend it without commission approval. So if people want a refund for whatever reason, they'll have to document it and make their case to the commission. And if people want additional funding out of it because they excelled in job creation, then we'll put the documentation together and we'll come before the commission and say the applicant has requested an amendment, and we'll get a chance to talk about it then.
I think the flip side is also true, right? If somebody comes and says, I'm creating 1,000 jobs for a coffee shop, we know that's not true. A coffee shop can't have Joel's Coffee Shop wouldn't be able to have 50 employees in Joel's Coffee Shop, right? So if they're doing great and they're busting the doors out, that's probably gonna precipitate them needing to expand, build another building, those kinds of things, right? So I think there's just a range that will naturally fall. So if they think that they're gonna create 5 jobs and things are going well, they may create 8, right? But if they think they're gonna create 5 and the square footage that they have, they're probably not creating 50, right? Just because things are going better, because square footage is a limiting factor on how many people I can have working at one time.
That one, there just have to be the right, if you've got so much incentive, and they got,
Yeah,
we're not giving them money back,
right.
you just reached your cap.
Yeah.
Get more credit. We're not gonna give more credit, so you just reach the cap, and then that is what it is.
Right.
So,
Okay,
I think that's a,
other points, Scott, or is that it?
That's it. The number of years, have we come to a consensus on that? As far as, there's 2 ways that you can go on this. If you fail to meet the performance requirements as set forth in the mitigation agreement, then the city can come in and post a lien for up to a period. So if
I think, let me just correct one, the lien happens automatically. So every property is liened. Once they fulfill it, then the lien is lifted.
I think that if you fail to meet the performance requirements, the lien ordinance reads right now. So if you fail to meet your requirements in year 1, rolls to year 2, as under exam.
Right.
Now we're in year 3, and you still fail to meet it, you received a $30,000 credit.
Okay, I
So
think
now
staff
you
is-
have, I think we have a disagreement of staff, because then, now you have a $30,000 lien that is placed, because you failed to meet the requirements as per the.
So the lien would be not on your whole $1 million structure, it'd be on the amount of the,
Amount of the credit,
Okay.
that's right.
so that way, if we wait to put the lien, then we can assess the lien at the value that they missed.
If they made it halfway, but they missed
They owe 15.
15,000, then it would be
Okay.
$15,000 lien. The other way that this works is that, so I think these two provisions work hand in hand, which is the other way, much like we do performance surety bonds, is an irrevocable letter of credit. So if your compliance is within 3 years, it would seem to me that the lien provision will be enacted within that 3-year period, and then we'll have,
And after 3 years, it's just over.
after 3 years, if they met compliance, but usually we foreclose on liens within about a year after that. So I would say a year timeframe post 3 years is what we'd be looking at.
And what I saw a head nod on that point was if you're in compliance in the first year, the average of that first year, we're done. If you're not, you get 2 more years to get. So, and that's what we're all on that page, okay?
So the lien would last a 4-year period of time, or your posting of the surety bond would be a 4-year period.
Okay,
Because we'll be foreclosing on it.
okay. And we're not voting on anything tonight? You're gonna go back and put these notes?
I'm gonna put these in, and Heather Ecanosa is our special counsel on this. She
Right.
is,
She'll review it.
she'll review it, so you may get another bite at the apple.
Okay, all right. And do we have everything staff needs, our staff, legal staff, to put dot the i's, cross the t's? Yeah, okay, let's move to item 15, resolution 2023-04, determining setting the proposed millage rates. You ready to read that, Scott?
Yes, sir.
All right, go ahead and read that into the title for us.
It's a resolution determining the proposed millage rate of the current year rollback rate, date, time, and place for the first and second public budget hearings as required by law, authorizing the city manager to change the budget hearing dates if necessary, directing the director of finance and administration to file said resolution with the property appraiser pursuant to the requirements of Florida statutes and the rules and regulations of the Florida Department of Revenue, with the state of Florida providing an effective date. Appropriate motion is pass resolution 2023-04 as read by title only.
Thank you, sir. Dallas?
Mr. Mayor, City Commission, just like you did earlier with your fire assessment, this is the maximum millage rate that the City Commission can adopt in this year. It is the rate that will be advertised on your trim notices. As the mayor mentioned earlier, we had, past tense, balanced the budget at a 5.90 millage rate, which was a reduction. However, this morning I was given notice that our health insurance renewal came in at a 42% premium increase, which is about a $300,000 increase. We don't anticipate that that's where we'll end up, but every year when we do this, we advise the commission that staff would recommend you adopt a millage rate higher than what you intend to adopt to address any unforeseen issues. So this is one of those unforeseen issues that has come up. So with that said, we are recommending that the City Commission adopt a preliminary millage at 5.9999. That is the maximum amount you could adopt in September. It'll be what's on your trim notices. And then we're obviously going to continue to do everything we can to get our health insurance rates back into the realm of sanity. But we do request that you adopt your preliminary millage at 5.9999.
Okay, thank you, sir. Questions? There are no, I have a motion from Commissioner Martin. Second from Commissioner Clark. Any comments, questions, motion from the dais? Public comments, question on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. That takes us to comments. City Manager, recipient of Man of the Year, Man of the Century, Man of the...
Member of the year.
Member of the Year. Oh, yeah. How many hats do you wear?
Millennial.
Oh, okay.
Is the member of the millennium. What? I don't know. It was an honor. Mr. Mayor, comments one of the best meetings of dialogue that I've witnessed among our elected officials in 9 years now, because I just had my 9-year anniversary. So just enjoyed the meeting, thought we got fantastic feedback. Appreciate that. In addition to my 9-year anniversary, I also experienced just last week a 1-year anniversary, and thought it was appropriate to tell our elected officials, our staff team, and our community how much you guys mean to me, your prayers, your support, all the things that you have poured out towards me and my family during the last year. I'm so grateful for. I will never be able to express that fully, but thank you for that. Mr. Mayor, I wanted to point out it was in the staff report, but it did not get mentioned during the presentation tonight regarding our audit. Seventh consecutive year of an unmodified opinion, and it is the expected norm in Newberry, and I appreciate that. I think that's how it should be, but I don't want it to ever become so commonplace that I fail to recognize how challenging that can be and all the work that goes into that. I'm very proud of Dallas and our finance team and really the rest of the staff that have to do all that they do so that our financial report comes back unmodified each year. So just 7 consecutive years for a city of our size to have that type of track record. Starts at the top with the expectations that are set and the directions that are set, but that's a really fantastic job by our finance team. Solid waste negotiations are ongoing. We have not received a proposal back from Waste Pro, but expect it this week. But I do want to give a heads up that what we're seeing in the world is not conducive to an extension at our current rate. So just wanted to prepare the commission for that. I think High Springs just terminated their contract, gave notice, terminated a $14 a month charge, and accepted a contract for a $24 a month charge. So talk about, a significant switch there. But I think the county is proposing a $5 a month increase on the MSBU. So what we're seeing are trends in the industry. What I'm hearing is tipping fees are going up, is driving it, and labor costs are going up and fuel costs are going up. They're all playing into that what looks to be a pretty substantial increase in solid waste, and that's statewide. That's not Newberry. Again, we haven't seen our price. Dallas already mentioned the health insurance premiums, so I won't have to go playing traffic tonight thinking about that. I'll be out of the office on Thursday, but available by cell phone if you need me. And a reminder to the commission that our next budget hearing is at 6 p.m. on Wednesday, August 2nd. Is that correct? That's when it's on my calendar. If that's not correct, we'll catch it before someone else gets done with comments. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That concludes my comments.
Thank you, sir, and happy 9 years, and especially happy 1 year anniversary.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Mr. Attorney?
Nothing to report.
Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk? These are for you. Thank you, ma'am. Commissioner Coleman?
I don't think you folks on the dais understand how much Mike New is a big dog. I spent 3 days with a gentleman and his lovely wife at this, everybody in the electrical industry knows who Mike New is and how much he influences. It's just big time. So the award he got the other night, I didn't really put 2 and 2 together. I was told just be there, whatever you do. But it was big. And I don't know if it was a surprise to Mike, but if it was, his speech was impeccable. It was unbelievable. And it just made me proud to be a Newberryan from that. It was just, patting myself on the back, but I voted for him. Well, I did at the end. I voted for this guy. Actually, I voted for this guy, but I ended up with this guy. Dallas Lee. Dallas, we've had our ups and downs, but Bubba, you do a great job, man. You really do. You impress me every year with the way this goes. And that goes back to Mike New. He hired you, so no, he didn't. Well, he put you where you belong.
Judy Rice hired you. That's right.
See, man, that's great. Jamie Jones. I know you don't like getting called out. You're like the guy back there in the back with 7 hats. Is that what it is? I forgot what it is. Or is it APPA award? So what are those? Both.
Yeah.
Jamie, I really appreciate you here in Newberry. I wish you weren't so old. Because every time I think of Jamie, he's gonna cut on out into retirement land. But he did tonight tell me that I guess the governor has changed the drop, and that kind of made me feel a little bit better. So maybe he won't drop.
I think I heard him commit to another 10 years.
Did he really? That'd be
That's
great.
what I heard, yeah, 10 more years, yeah.
So,
The girl that's hugging on him had something to do with it.
yeah, and she's adorable. All right, last but not least, Brian, great job tonight. You were right there on point on anything that we asked. And I like that. I think that's it. I gave all the accolades for 1 year. I'm done.
Well, he done stole all my thunder. Good job, Ricky. Well done.
All right, I'm done.
Commissioner Clark?
Well, you can't beat that. I'd say thanks to the staff, and I know, thank you all for what you do, so there ain't no more to say. Go through that same banker speech that he gives. A lot of people in this world are in hurt locker because of that banker speech. He sold them houses and 20% interest, but anyway, he's very good at what he does. Mike, though, I went to this conference, I'll just have to say it was a very good conference, and Ricky's right. Mike knows everybody knows Mike, and he's got high regard. So I learned a lot. It's always a good time to learn from the professionals and things that we can do. If you really, really want to know, we probably need to sit down and have another meeting, because you can't go through all that knowledge.
Sorry. I was just agreeing with you. I said, yeah.
It was an inside thing between me and Mike. Anyway, I was kidding. But seriously, thanks to the staff. I'd like to say that we got the Veterans Memorial brick. All the stuff is on the website. The QR codes are available. The gala tickets are out. And we've had some good donations and getting more. And I'll be coming to see you, Dallas, as soon as I get a couple more. But the gala tickets are out. It's very important that we support this. But we're going to support the staff, because we got some people not having tables. So we'll get with you and get all that squared away. And other than that, God bless America.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Farnsworth?
God bless America ×2.
Good job. Good job. Commissioner Martin?
This feels like an end of the year speaking night, but I view my role as a commissioner, and our role up here is to set expectations, empower you with the right kind of tools, and on the back end provide you the leadership to make that kind of stuff happen. When that all comes together, we are successful as we are. And I think, I don't know anybody else that operates the way that we do. I love the fact that we do that kind of stuff. We can have sane conversations perfectly fine, but it helps. Hopefully we make your job easier, and that's a two-way street. So I appreciate everything you guys do.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Maison?
I love our staff. I tell them every time I see them. That was a great speech from all three of you guys. I was going to ask you, Mike, and maybe this is a conversation that we can have outside of the commission meeting. When subdivisions are put up, is there any way specific subdivisions could have like a subdivision garden, if that makes sense? I was talking to Mr. Black.
Josh.
Josh, yes. And I was telling him he was like, it's funny because I think Flintwood off of Park Road, I didn't notice, have one. And I was thinking about this, and I was like, because, with the way things are going, the food change could, but how possible would it be for certain subdivisions in the city of Newberry, as they're putting them up, have a community garden?
I might get it 75% right, but Brian will get it 100% right.
Mr. Mayor, that's always an option as an amenity to any community that's developed. It's up to the developer to set that land aside as part of the open space requirement or something. There's certainly nothing in our code that requires it. Not that there couldn't be, but it would be sort of varying from the norm that's out there. Those are usually kind of special amenities that are always available to a developer. It's just not often taken advantage of. But certainly discussion we could have with the development community.
Yeah, I figured since there's green space and there's a lot, I think it was Clark that was mentioning those lots that are kind of odd. Just popped in my mind. I was like, you know what? Why not just, here and there? That's all I got. But I appreciate my staff. I see Jamie. I see all you guys throughout my routes, and even Lee over there. And I appreciate you all. So.
Thank you, sir. Well, we had a lot to celebrate tonight, and I'm sure that we'll learn more about the member of the Millennium and that later on. But I also wanted to congratulate Miss Judy on finishing up a 2-year program certification, and remind me the name of this because this is a big deal. And she's now certified public manager, which is really, really, it's a lot of work. It's 2 years that she's been doing this to represent the city of Newberry. She finished it up, so absolutely well done. And we appreciate you and all of our employees that put back into their professional development, continue to grow their skills. So thank you, Miss Judy, for doing that and seeing it through to the end. Jamie, I wish you weren't so old too. Yeah, but we love you. We want you to stay around. And I just want to piggyback on Commissioner Barton. I think we've all recently seen what happens when boards don't work well together, when boards work against each other. And I also appreciate we can have sane conversations, we can disagree, but then recognize when our colleagues just have a disagreement and we respect their right to have that opinion, and we don't try to stand in the way or play games with the public about that. So you guys really are a pleasure to work with. And you guys have managed to hold our rates steady or reduce them for almost a decade at this point. So in the city of Newberry, we have created stability, right? Our residents know what they can expect. The biggest thing we have is moving a utility bill from the 15th to the 1st, right? And I think people are upset because we're disrupting that. I'm used to it, right? I'm used to it on the 15th. I don't want to pay on the 1st, right? And I'm appreciative of our staff working with those folks and saying, hey, we're going to make sure that we make this transition and figuring out how you can still make that payment. So that's really all I have. I just want to say thank you. I appreciate everybody tonight. Public comment? We are adjourned.